All right, good evening. Welcome to tonight's, what'd you say? Okay, welcome to tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Select Board. Today is Tuesday, July 9th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. We're going to begin tonight with public comments. Are there any public comments from the board?
I just want to thank Steve Archambault and the town band for their first evening of band concerts, which was last night in front of Passios at 7 o'clock. And they will be there for the next 4 weeks, weather permitting. There is one rain date for the following week, 6th week, if needed. I encourage people to come by. Last night, the Lunenburg Family Lions Club was there offering free hot dogs and popcorn and 50-50, and it's just all-out good time. So thank you to them for another good year, or start to a good year.
Are there any public comments from the public? Mrs. Gilman.
My name is Mandy Gilman, 186 Reservoir Road. I'm coming today because, as promised, I'm continuing to be involved with getting more school funding for our schools in Lunenburg. You probably know, but Chair Nizzolo, I believe the town manager, the superintendent, the FinCom, and the school committee have all been invited to a meeting next week with Representative Scarsdale. It's next Friday, the 19th, I think. I forget what date it is, but it's next Friday morning. And I was also invited as a member of the PTO. And so I went to the FinCom meeting 2 weeks ago and suggested to the Finance Committee, working with Chairman Waters, that it would be helpful in my professional experience, for us to be put in writing our school requests to the chairwoman, to the representative, before we go to the meeting. There's going to be a lot of people there. She has 6 communities. Desi is presenting, or Desi is going to be at the meeting. And so in order to make it as productive as possible, I suggested to Chair Waters that it would be helpful. I would imagine if the group that was going sort of had an agreed upon agenda of what the town was asking for from a school department standpoint, because that's what the meeting is focused on. So Chair Waters talked to the school committee. There was a list going around. The finance committee talked about it. I offered to write the letter. I just sent a letter to your inbox that is a real rough draft, but I am also speaking to a member of the school committee tomorrow, and I just wanted to present to you folks in hopes that you might consider as a board signing on to it. The stuff that's in it is of agreement. I believe is what the FinCom and the school committee, obviously they have their own processes to sort of sign off on these things, and I have to sort of work through all of that. I know public comment is short. If you'd like to hear I can give you 2 seconds on what's in the letter. The 2 big things are Chapter 70, obviously. The Mass Budget and Policy Center actually just came out with a report that suggests that the inflation rate in Chapter 70 is really hurting. The way that the inflation, and I can't claim to know Chapter 70 inside and out as it's super complicated, but basically that there's an issue with inflation, and obviously that's one of the reasons our Chapter 70 money didn't go up, and they are recommending, and they're a think tank that does national state policy, lifting the inflation rate, and they actually broke it down by community. If the legislature moved on that suggestion, then Lunenburg would get an extra $1 million. And so since that is a think tank organization and they seem to have like a real policy forward, I would suggest to the town that we jump on that bandwagon instead of trying to come up with a new formula or trying to come up with our own story. An extra $1 million would make a huge difference to the, and this is what the folks at the School Committee Association suggested to me. I talked to them. The other thing I've been beating the drum on is school transportation. Lunenburg is a non-regional school, so we do not get any funding for non-regional school transportation. Regional schools are reimbursed at 75%. It depends on the state budget every year, but they do get a significant amount of money. So I personally think we should be expressing to our legislators that there doesn't seem to be any reason that we shouldn't be getting that reimbursement as well. Every regional school in the area gets it. Mr. Scalabrini also made a suggestion, a regulatory suggestion to change the competition standards for school bus contracts. The school committee has reported that part of the reason that the busing issues are so bad is there's no competition. There's only one vendor in the area, so even when they put something out to bid, if only one company bids on it, it's very difficult for them to. And so Mr. Scalabrini, who's an attorney, made a suggestion on sort of some regulatory changes that could be made. So I've included that in the letter. So I'll stop talking. I just wanted to approach you and let you know. And I mean, I know it's public record. It's a very drafty letter, but I would love any input if you would be willing to consider the select board signing on to it.
Thank you, Mandy. And I do plan on adding it to the agenda next week, just so we can sign off on it. One thing that we wanted to do between us, the Finance Committee, and the School Committee ahead of this meeting is to have one unified message, so it's more symbolic than anything that the select board signs off on it. So, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. And feel free to email me or call me if you have any questions to talk about it in the meantime.
All right.
Bye. Have fun.
Any other public comments? Mr. Burden. Can you just say it again once you get up to the podium?
George Burden, 39 Cortlandt Circle. I made a request to the Select Board on June 4th for the executive meeting minutes for January 9th. Mr. Alonso stated that he's not responsible, that the clerk is. That's not true. I'm still waiting for those for 30 days, so I'm following up at this point. If I don't receive them, I'm going to honestly file a open meeting law violation, which is appropriate, I've been told. So I just wanted to kind of inform the board about that. The one other thing that the last time I was here, I mentioned a law firm that Mr. Jeffries had mentioned to us that was used by his firm. We were told by that firm that an individual there called Ryan Severance had indicated to me and my wife that he did represent Mr. Jeffries' firms. After the conversation, when we mentioned this to the situation, we got a letter to our attorney stating that it was a lie. We do not lie. My family does not lie. We did not lie. We absolutely heard it, that Mr. Severance indicated Mr. Jeffries' firm was represented by that firm. And Mr. Jeffries actually told us the same thing back in 2022, in December of 2022, that he was represented by, he used a firm called MLB, which is represented, it's a short term for that, Murati, the law firm that was used. It's a very interesting situation because our association had used attorneys for 20 years. They got dismissed and started using this firm. We were not being told why. We have found bills and so forth from our prior association attorneys that have Mr. Gamel's name on it. Mr. Gamel that's the chief of police, by the way, everybody. Mr. Gamel has refused and not acknowledged that he had that conversation, but our association is getting billed for that. It's a very interesting situation. It's going to be a long-moving procedure, I'm sure, and the town will hear more about this because it's really a disgusting situation that happened to us. We were trying to be forced out of the town, and we know that. Yes, Mr. Jeffries, you can shake your head and so forth. I had a conversation today with Mr. Franco, and it's kind of very telling of some of the things that he's, had said to you and him, kind of, we feel persecuted us, as we've said before, and that's why we're looking for those January 9th meetings. This is an ongoing situation that we felt the town should be very well aware of and be kept acknowledged of, because we've heard of these situations before, and we want them to stop. This is a disgusting situation. We went to the town manager back in 22 to discuss these situations. She took probably one sentence of notes. We were there for an hour and a half with her, me and my wife, because of these situations of what's been going on. And it honestly got worse for us. The situation got much worse. I have 3 daughters in school that are honor roll society, great kids. I know parents always say that, but you can go ask any of their teachers. They've never been in trouble. They're great kids. My family's a good family. I'll tell you that this has had a big effect on my family, a huge effect, and it's disgusting, honestly. We're going to get it to stop. We're not going to move. We wanted our family to have a stable home. My wife did not come from a very stable home. I did. We wanted a stable home where we could raise our kids, bring them up, have them come back to college. That's probably not going to happen for us in Lunenburg anymore, unfortunately. But we looked into this town as a nice little town when we first moved here. The first 10 years were great. When we brought up a situation of embezzlement in our association, that's when our lives went downhill. And we have proof of not proof of embezzlement, but one of our largest bills, $3,000 a month, was being duplicate paid. We have 6 bills a month, one of them being paid in two duplicate. It's a situation where we had Mr. Kent Oldfield was a septic systems provider for us. Lunenburg Conservation Land, we're being told it isn't, it is, we're not quite sure, but we have documentation that does say it's conservation land, 100 acres of the association, where we have a septic service system kind of basically down in that area, and the work that was being done, the individual was switching samples to the state level, at the state level. So basically not maintaining our plant, but switching the samples to show that it was. Anybody can look this up on under the AGO, Attorney General, if you want to look at the case. It's all documented under the Attorney General's office of what this individual did, and it seems that there's some ongoing issues that we're worried about with the septic system. We've asked for small water system services that the town used to use. They came in after this individual polluted basically our area. The woman was very vocal, I understood, and we stopped paying bills, and she took off the contract. So
Mr. Byrne, you're over 3 minutes.
Okay,
so.
all right, I'll leave it at that, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for coming in for your public comment. I do believe Mr. Jeffries does want to respond to you, so I will let him do that.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, and I mean, you can have whatever facts you want, Mr. Burden, but I just want to state for the record.
I don't want to hear it because you've told me lies before, Mr. Jeffries.
I want to state for the record, and I'm speaking to the board, the public, you, Mr. Burden. After our previous meeting, I reached out to the gentleman whose name you had stated. I think his last name is Severance. Yep. And I called their law office and said, based on this public meeting that Mr. Burden has presented, you guys supposedly have represented me. I have no idea who you guys are, and I would appreciate it if you would stop spreading false information. The attorney at that point, who again, I'd never spoken to, wasn't even aware of the law firm. I never gave you information about them. I know exactly who I told you I had worked with. And it definitely wasn't them.
Who was it?
And it wasn't in my capacity as a small business owner. Nonetheless, I spoke to Mr. Severance, and he indicated that he was alerted after that meeting to the same comment, and that he had sent your attorney a letter stating that you needed to stop basically falsely attributing things to them.
He told me that. We
And I
heard that
also
first
took the
statement. That was
opportunity-
true, and we do not lie. My family does
I
not lie,
also took
Mr.
the
Jeffries.
opportunity to reach out to your attorney and remind him of what libel and defamation are, and that you were flirting with the line.
I'm not defamating anybody. I was
Thank
told
you.
something that...
Those are my only comments.
I was
All right.
told by an attorney that he represented your firm. So.
Thank you for coming in tonight. I hope you enjoy the rest of your night, George.
Thank you. I'm just repeating what I was told, so I'm just telling you it's not defamation. The truth is definitely not defamation.
Are there any other public comments? Mr. Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Nicola. Good evening, everybody. John Bowen, 162 Highland Street. I'm resident with Jean Marie Price at the same address. I'd like to start with a few key points. As you're aware, myself and Jean Marie Price about the North Cemetery. On Monday around 7:30 a.m., I heard a loud, obnoxious tone voice speaking out. I quote the part, speaking at, not out, to a DPW worker named Pete about what is he doing. It was quite loud enough to be heard from my porch, which to the well on South Street in the cemetery is where I heard the information that I'm about to tell you. I noticed that Pete, who happens to be the part-time worker for the DPW, was getting water from the well. In the context of the conversation I heard was Nancy Yasko loudly asking the help, "What is he doing?" Believe me, the tone was supervisory and not inquisitive. I know the difference. Who does this person, Nancy Yasko, thinks who she is? Accosting another employee of the DPW publicly? When will this board rein in this commission? When will you take an action? When will you do anything? It is a redundancy commission wherein the DPW has 100% control of day-to-day maintenance operation, already answered by your attorney, Ms. Town Manager. Okay? It's appropriated in the charter as such, which states it's under the purview of the Miss Town Manager, day-to-day operations, and the DPW Director. The Cemetery Commissioner Yasko has no authority to communicate with any employee of the DPW with the express content of the DPW Director by direction of the Town Manager. If that, the DPW Director on his own. You need to back her off her game. I placed a call to the Superintendent Todd Holdman to report this situation. On another note, I heard a letter that was written by a Miss Mayo. There was a number of comments in the email about her husband's grave and the condition of the cemetery, as well as a mention of my property and extended family's property, referencing a junkyard. Miss Town Manager, I know the Powell family, I know who they are, and I believe that the statements are inaccurate representation of that family, and I will be filing an FOI request to find more information and communication that was made to the Town Manager, the Cemetery Commission regarding these remarks, to get to the bottom line of where this originated and was orchestrated. The Powell family is a well-known family, as well as the Price family here in town, okay? They've been here over 100 years. I am certain Ms. Mayo was coerced in statements by Nancy Yasko, certain of it. And I will find out, and I will also be before this board with those findings, when I find out. When this board appointed Nancy Yasko, I read the qualifications she submitted to this board. I also reviewed her past involvement with the Fitchburg State University to help keep the pool open to the public and not close it. She created a committee to try to force the past president to have the school pay for it at the expense of students. Think about this. What is she doing here but working on the taxpayer to pay over $1 million of expenses that she needs to care for these cemeteries, instead of listening to other options, or to meet with me about a different direction, which would be to create a cemetery corporation. It would end her position, and that's exactly why. Her direction is about her position and not the goal of this town. She failed. The pool is closed. Lastly, Mr. Passios is asking for an appointment, even though I agree with him on many, many fronts, which I did, and I did support you, Mr. Passios, at town meeting with regard to taking care of the tennis courts, okay? I believe he needs to sit back, run for an office position, and not be permitted to get appointed to another board. If no one volunteers, the boards need to operate with what they have. Having one person appointed to many different boards across many different agencies at one time is ripe for abuse of voting authority, and the Select Board needs to really look at that when they consider Mr. Passios' appointment to the Historical Commission this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen.
Thank you very much for
In
your time.
fairness, I do just have to say, I heard the other side of the story about what happened at the cemetery on Monday morning, and based on that side of the story, I had no reason to believe it was confrontational or adversarial at all. So,
Oh, no,
in all
I thank you very
fairness,
much for
just wanna
that.
put
I wanted
out
to bring
there.
it up because I could hear it from my porch, and it was over 250 feet away, and it was quite loud.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments?
Actually, you know what, Mr. Nizzola, since you want to question that, right? Could you tell us the other side of the story, since you wanted to offer it?
We already know.
We'd like you to offer the other side of the story.
I think it's necessary.
Oh, well, I'd like you to
I don't
attend
wanna
the
speak
Select
for
Board,
other
I'd like you
people.
to attend the Cemetery Commission meeting coming up and offer your side of the story that you were given.
Thank you for the
Would you be
invitation.
willing to do that?
Thank you for the invitation.
You don't want to, do you?
Thank you, Mr. Bowen.
Stop covering. That's what you're notorious for, and that's why Mr. Alonso needed your position.
Okay.
And that's why Mr. Jeffrey sits there to babysit you.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Always interesting, your select board meetings. Tim Murphy, I am your town moderator and the chair of your screening committee. And I want to just give you a brief update on how we're doing so far. I am on Assateague Island in Virginia, camping with my family, testing out whether or not the Zoom is going to work for a meeting that I have planned. So for starters, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
It could be louder, at least for me. I don't know if the booth can turn it up.
So can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is obviously not working well.
Can you hear us?
We can hear you. I don't know if you can hear
We
us,
can.
but we can hear you.
All right, I could hear you then. Thank
All
you.
right.
Mike. So I'll just talk and you can just listen. So the members of the committee,
Mr. Murphy, I don't know if you can hear us now, but you're breaking out.
Chris Menard from the Finance Committee, Tom Alonso, your representative from the Select. Yeah, it's probably a lousy connection. Unstable is what the computer says. So I'm just going to talk. In our meeting, I'll check something different. I wanted to give a shout out to Annie Aubrey and Julie Beliveau, who've been instrumental in helping me get this together. I want to let you know that we had our first meeting on June 24th, and we have another meeting tomorrow night, and we have another meeting the following Wednesday and the 31st. So working very diligently as quickly as possible. We are following the format that we laid out in 2017 when we hired Heather. This is my third experience with hiring or screening for a town manager. It's become a lot more electronic than it has been over a period of time. The next meeting will be to figure out a way to get my Zoom to work better. Maybe I'll just do it on my phone. But tomorrow night we'll be working on the ad. The following week, a week on the 17th, we'll be working on how to do interviewing. And on the 31st, we'll be interviewing Heather to give us input into her thoughts about how we can, who we should be looking for as an ideal candidate. So that's kind of the process. That's where we're at. Obviously, we're going to be coming back to you at some point. We may be asking for money to hire a recruiter if we decide we need to go beyond MMA. It is generally said that going with MMA is the best because you need Mass Municipal experience. There are a couple of other agencies affiliated with Mass Municipal, but they'll bring in candidates that are outside Massachusetts, so that's something we need to weigh out. So that's generally my report.
All right, it looks like you froze, Mr. Murphy, but thank you for your public comment. Okay. We're going to move on to announcements. I have two.
And I will make another report in a couple of weeks as we move along.
All right, thank you, Mr. Murphy. I have two announcements. The town beach was shut down this afternoon due to bacteria levels. You can check on social media and the town website for updates. And also the summer band concert started last night, and there's going to be 4 more in the following Mondays, and they are from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at TC Passios. Communications from other boards. I do have one. This is the superintendent's update from the Lunenburg Water District, and they just asked me to share it. The Mass Ave water main replacement project is anticipated to begin in early July. The replacement of this segment of the water main will ensure a consistent and reliable supply of clean water to homes, businesses, and public facilities adjacent to the project area. Construction activities are scheduled to take place Monday through Friday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. We will do our best to keep the community informed about the construction activities and provide advance notice of any anticipated impacts such as service interruptions. Police detail officers will be on site to facilitate safe traffic movements through the work zone. Expect delays while traveling in the area and plan accordingly. The new line item charge for the Mass Ave water main project is anticipated to start with the October 1st bills. Effective immediately, the Lunenburg Water District is implementing water use restrictions to ensure the conservation of adequate supply of water for all residents. These restrictions are in place from May 1st to September 30th and apply to all non-essential water use between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. The Board of Water Commissioners will continue to monitor water levels and will adjust restrictions as needed. Stay informed through local newspapers, the website, and by signing up for our e-subscriber notifications. If anyone has questions, our team is available, and we encourage them to contact us by emailing waterquality@lunenburgwater.org. All right. We're going to move on to appointments.
I have a
Oh, sure.
communication, yep. The Economic Development Committee met on the 27th, and they are hosting their second annual meet and greet on September 26th at 5:30 at Low Prices Ranch? I almost just said Powell's. Low Prices Ranch, so I'll be sharing more information as they continue to prep that event.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements? No, okay, thanks. All right, so moving on to our 7:15 PM public hearing for the application for an all-alcohol general on-premises license and automatic amusement device license for Pal's Golf Club, Pal's Golf Lounge LLC, doing business as Blue Sky Golf located at 5 Summer Street. This is a public hearing, so I'll ask the clerk to read the notice and invite the owners up.
The Lunenburg Select Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 9th at 7:15 PM in Town Hall, 17 Main Street, second floor, Lunenburg, Massachusetts, on the application submitted by Pal's Golf Lounge LLC, DBA, doing business as Blue Sky Golf for an all-alcoholic beverages, general on-premises license, and an automatic amusement device license located at 5 Summer Street, Unit 1, Lunenburg, Massachusetts. The premises described as a 2,141 square foot unit with basement with 1 entrance and exit containing a bar and seating area, 3 golf simulator areas, and storage.
All right, thank you, and thanks again for coming in. So it looks like we got your alcohol policy, your hours, and the floor plan. So I'll just open it up to the board for questions.
I have a comment.
Okay.
So, a couple comments. So first, thank you for revising the application. I think that the alcohol policy, while a bit light, is certainly adequate for you guys to get going. I imagine that you will have some revisions over time. I think the floor plan is pretty clear. The only question or comment is about the hours of operation. I don't personally have a conflict with the business being open at 8 a.m., but I don't personally like the idea of a bar being open at 8 a.m. So the alcohol portion, I would prefer that to be a little later. Do you actually intend, I know that at our last meeting you indicated that you wanted the range of hours, maximum time of what this board allows, so that way as you guys kind of fine tune your business, you can really figure out what those exact hours are going to be. But I would offer likewise, you can always come back and expand those hours if you feel like they need to be expanded. But is your intent to serve alcohol at 8 a.m. before kids even get to school?
No, I planned on serving alcohol just like the liquor stores allow. The allowance at the same time as them, when they're allowed to open, we're allowed to serve alcohol.
All right, so I believe the earliest liquor store in town opens at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
What's the earliest bar open?
I thought it was about the same. Do we happen to know? But I thought it was 10 or, yeah, I thought it was also 10 a.m. as well. Because I hear you, and we only have a handful of bars in town. And they're generally establishments that actually don't even stay open until 2 a.m. Most of them are closed by midnight or 11 o'clock. But I believe it's 10 to 11 has been the pattern here. So that's my only comment, is I'm not as comfortable with the 8 a.m. I'd prefer that to be about 10 a.m. That's it.
All right, thank you. Everything good on your end?
The application looks complete. There were some missing items last time that were submitted, so I think it's in order.
I have a question. Were you able to begin construction or
Absolutely not.
because of this?
Because of this, Board of Health, and the fire department.
So it wasn't just because of this?
I'm kind of dumbfounded as to why we're not doing construction yet still.
I want to say, I don't know why we couldn't have, as I proposed last time, given you a contingency. So for myself at least, I'll apologize for having to drag you in here again when you could have clarified all these things by sending us the documentation we asked for, which is what you have. So, for that I apologize, but I intend to approve it as presented now.
Can I just follow up on
Sure.
that? There was one question last meeting, the hearing with the building department, that I sent out communication to the board after the meeting, and the question was not that the application had to be approved, it was that the floor plan had to be the same that was submitted for the building department permit as for the liquor license. And that
All
has,
of that has been submitted the exact same way.
correct. We verified that right after the meeting with the building commissioner.
Yeah.
So what was the confusion too, you had 3 floor plans submitted last
Yeah, those
time.
were all submitted to him prior.
But the one you
And he
confirmed
asked
at,
for more stuff, so we gave him more.
the one you confirmed at the meeting, the final engineered plan was what the building department has on plan as record
Correct.
too.
All right, I'll also apologize. It's definitely not ideal that we had to have you come back in a couple weeks later. So are we ready to make a motion?
I would move that we approve the request for the all-alcohol general on-premises license and automatic amusement device licenses for Pal's Golf Lounge LLC, doing business as Blue Sky Golf, located at 5 Summer Street, Unit 1.
Second.
Any additional discussion?
I'm not going to support it, but I do support the business. My only area of conflict is the 8 a.m. alcohol. As I've stated, I think it's a preference of the licensing authority, and my preference is that we don't serve alcohol at 8 a.m. in the morning. Otherwise, I hear my colleagues, I don't personally agree. I think that licensing authorities, you have to provide information for people to make a adequate decision. And I didn't think that I had enough information to make an adequate decision at our last meeting. But I do think that the information is there today. I just don't agree with the hours. If we had the information last week, I certainly would not have delayed you to come back to waste your time. I would have just vocalized it then. But I think it's a great business. I think it's a great opportunity. I don't have a conflict with serving alcohol. My only issue is 2 hours, Monday through Friday. I prefer for alcohol to be served after all the kids are in school.
All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
The motion passes 4-1. Thank you again for coming in tonight, and good luck with your business. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can just reach out to the office tomorrow for the signature on the, for the automatic amusement license.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, up next is a 7:30 PM public hearing on notice of intent to convert from Chapter 61B, Lot 2, Kilburn Street, and notice of intent to convert and sell from Chapter 61B, Lot 1 and 3, Kilburn Street. Vote on first right of refusal, including to exercise the first right of refusal, etc. So is there representation here? I see Mr. Hillman on via Zoom, so, okay, cool.
Good evening, board members. My name is Attorney Tom Gibbons, and I represent Timrick Realty Trust, the owners of those lots. We have submitted the notices to the appropriate boards and to the state forester. The town has, on the notice of sale, 120 days to determine whether or not it wants to exercise its right of first refusal. And on the conversion of Lot 2, my opinion is that the time for that has passed because the town would have been required to provide an appraisal within 30 days, but I'm here to answer any questions that the board might have regarding all 3 lots.
All right, I'll open up for questions.
No questions. I support the request in terms of the waiving.
I do as well, but I do want to just point out for the board that conservation, open space, and the assessors have it on their agenda. So I would be okay with voting on it tonight, but it's up to the board if we want to.
What would you be voting on?
What?
What would you be voting on tonight? You said you'd be happy voting on it. Voting on what?
Whether or not we're going to waive.
Without hearing from conservation or anybody that we generally hear from?
Well, that's what I'm asking. If we
You
don't want to
said
do
you'd be
that, then
happy
we don't.
voting on it tonight. I'm saying, how would you be happy voting on it? How would you have any information to vote on? If we haven't even heard from the very boards that we require that we hear from about whether we should exercise a right of first refusal or not.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yep.
And as for the second one, to the town manager, are we in concurrence that our time is exceeded on Lot 2?
The time for the appraisal, because that appraisal has to happen within the first 30 days of receipt.
And if we don't have an appraisal?
We still have the 120 days to
Oh, okay.
act.
All right.
If I may, and I do understand that from a title perspective, it's the expiration of the 120 days, but I would respectfully request that at least as to Lot 2, that a vote be taken today, because an appraisal is a condition preceding to the town's ability to purchase that property, and that time has passed. Now, the 120 days, you could wait for that to expire, but I would request that you not do that, since the time has passed for the appraisal, and your option on that Lot 2 specifically, in my opinion, has expired. The other 2 lots, yes, you have the 120 days, and if you're waiting to hear from boards, I understand that.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. So what you're saying is that by law, if we hadn't gotten the appraisal, we cannot purchase it even if we want to?
That's my opinion, yes.
Okay, do we concur with that?
That's, yes.
Okay, so then waiting the 120 days seems kind of, I would agree, would seem pointless. Okay.
So just to be clear, our option has expired for Lot 2, but not 1 and 3.
Correct, because of the appraisal.
Okay.
But the board, like I said, still can, it's not required to vote tonight, still could wait out the 120 days. It's just how the law is written for that type of.
Right, but we cannot choose to buy it.
Correct.
Okay, so that would just be unnecessarily making somebody wait, which I'm not really inclined to do. I understand we can do it, but I'm not necessarily inclined to do it if we have the reason I want to hear from the other boards that we usually hear from is it something that we're interested in as a town? And if we are, then we can exercise it. But if we can't exercise it, and we agree that we can't exercise it because we didn't get an appraisal, I mean, to have, in taking things out of chapter, I don't think I've ever come across this with the appraisal process. Did these come at separate times, these 3 lots?
No, they were all submitted as one, which was a little bit confusing as well, because if on the face of them, they looked identical. They looked like duplicate paperwork. It's no error on your part. That's the way it was submitted as far as the 2 notices.
So what
that were
differentiates
submitted.
1 and 3 from 2 then?
One is a conversion versus the other is a conversion with intent to sell.
Oh, so the other one is just being taken out of chapter by the same owner?
So,
Yes, he
so if I
intends to
may-
keep it for his family.
Okay.
And if I may.
Of course.
So yes, when there's a conversion, when there's an intent to sell, the town has the right of first refusal, can step into the shoes of the buyer. When it's a conversion for the current owner to convert it to a residential use, the process is that the appraiser, because you have no contract to decide what the what the value is. And just on the applications, I submitted them on the same day, but they're 2 distinct notices. And I did serve in hand all 4 boards that were required to be, the Conservation Commission, the boards and commissions that were required to be served, were all served on the same day. I think it was June.
May 15th.
May
Oh,
15th.
May 15th, all right, so, yeah, so.
I have a question. The other boards and committees, I mean, from May 15th to now, we're talking 60 days. I mean, I've never understood this to be that we had 30 days. I've always understood to be that there was a 120-day decision-making process. And so, I don't necessarily find it out of the ordinary that 2 boards have, or 3 boards have not come up with a determination yet here. So just offer that as a comment. I'm comfortable either way, but I think our normal process has been to wait to get the responses from the other boards and committees. Nonetheless, I think this board always has the option to act without that advice.
All right, well, I don't mind waiting either, just wanted to see what members of the board wanted to do. So are there any other questions or comments at this point?
Yeah, well, I would make a motion that we, again, waive our right of first refusal on Lot 2, since our time to get an appraisal has expired, since it is a conversion, not a sale, just to release that, because obviously we can't purchase it anyway. So I don't want to hold up the property owner, from doing what they are looking to do, since we have no legal, aside from delaying it, we have no legal way of intervening anyway.
Second.
I have a question for the applicant. If the town opts to exercise its right on the other 2 lots, would they still be looking to convert Lot 2?
Yes.
Okay, so even if they're sandwiched in, right?
Yeah, the plan was attached, I don't have it in front of me. One of the lots, I don't recall if it's 1 or 3, is not.
Yeah, it's not in the middle,
Right.
yeah, we saw the
But
design.
Lot 2 would be, yeah, even if the town decided to purchase 1 and 3, Lot 2 would be converted. And I, not to be presumptuous, but I have submitted a notice of non-exercise for convenience, but,
We, our council drafted.
okay.
He was forwarded what you had provided, but we typically use our own
Yeah, no
form
problem
and
at all.
adopt that.
All right, any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
yep, thank you.
Any idea when it would be on the next meeting after you hear from the other boards so that I can calendar that?
I know that one of them had a meeting and it was on their agenda for tomorrow night. The other one is also meeting, but I didn't see it on their agenda, so I'm not sure. But probably in the next couple of weeks, they'll all,
Okay,
Board
very
of
good.
Assessors is July
Court-
22nd.
July 22nd.
And I think
Yep.
planning board.
And
because planning
Conservation
board-
and open space are tomorrow.
Yeah, but I didn't see it on conservation. I might have missed it, but.
I'll
yeah.
check in with
So by the end
town
of the month,
manager.
probably.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care now.
All right, so our next appointment is at 7:50, but since it's not a public hearing, we can just proceed with that, right? All right. So up next is the meeting with Shady Point, so I'll invite up any representatives from Shady Point. So the purpose of this was to just review the agreement with you guys here, because it's easier than going back and forth and also cheaper. So I don't know if you guys have anything that you want to address while you're here. You can do that first. If not, I'll just open it up to questions from the board.
Well, we somewhat have already put the format in. We've had some Lunenburg residents come up. And one of the things we do to verify they're a Lunenburg resident, usually they'll show the license. Once they do that,
This is what they get
we
for their
give them a pass
windows.
that they hang from their mirror. And other than that, to me, it was pretty simple, but
Yeah.
so.
All right, I'll open up to the board then for any questions.
I think the only question we had was on the time, and I'm trying to find it. Yeah, here we go. It's in section 11A, about termination. It currently reads, with or without, so I'll start. This agreement shall expire on the date specified in herein, unless renewed in compliance with the terms of this agreement and all other requirements of law, or unless terminated earlier under the following conditions. And the first is with or without cause. And as it currently reads, it says either the licensee or the licensor may terminate this agreement by giving written notice to the other party at least 24 hours prior to the effective date of termination stated in this notice. Are you guys comfortable pushing that out to 14 days?
I don't care. That's fine.
Okay. So I would ask my colleagues to consider changing that to 14 days.
Yep, I support that.
That's fine.
Anything else we wanted to discuss tonight?
The only thing we discussed that seemed to be under the conduct of the licensee. So you have, in the agreement, there is on 6B, it says the licensee shall not conduct nor permit any of its employees, agents, contractors, or invitees to conduct any operations or business under the licensed premises except for those permitted by Article 2, unless prior written authorization is given. Any such authorization shall be given or denied solely at the licensor's discretion. So clearly, we're not going to promote or want any of our residents to do anything of business, but obviously, we don't have anybody there strictly enforcing this, as long as this is understood, that we don't promote that, and we would support, I personally would support whatever kind of remedy you want to do for people who transgress this on the individual level, but not on the licensee level.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
I
know,
thought it was a gentleman's agreement to that. I just wanted to
Yeah,
get you
no, we
up front
just-
saying that.
We're very simple, but then it got a little confusing
Sure.
for us,
Well, that's because people with big degrees get involved,
so.
to the benefit of both of us. But I just want to make sure that section is clarified, and I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I think outside of the agreement, it would be useful to have just a internal procedure, like point of contact, if there are issues that come up,
Right.
and
Well, whenever are you talking about the residents?
No.
with the town,
Us.
like meaning with the select board's office, that if you do encounter issues with
Contact.
whatever it may be, maybe there's some nefarious activity going on,
Right.
that a way for us just to make sure we keep lines of communication open.
Yeah.
Mm.
So how do you want to do that?
I would start with the select board's executive assistant
Okay.
as that point, and then she can disseminate it to the interim or town manager at that point.
I am assuming that under your agreement with other people who come to your location already to benefit from the use of the lake and your grounds, that there are limits to what people can do already.
Yep.
So I would not be, at some point, I don't want to delay this because it's already midsummer. But at some point, we should probably say that people who are coming in from the town of Lunenburg under this licensing agreement are subject to the same rules of your grounds that you have enforced. Now, I've read this, I haven't reread it before tonight to see if that exists, but certainly I would be in favor of that being very clear, that whoever takes advantage of the grounds and the hospitality of Shady Point is subject to the rules of Shady Point, just bar none. I mean, so that there's no carve-out for this, just access is what you're giving.
Right.
Otherwise, the guests are subject to the same rules and regulations that you have for anybody else.
Yeah.
Okay. And we probably want to put that in at some point. Doesn't have to be now.
Any other questions or comments while they're here?
I'd be for it as is.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming in tonight, and
Yep.
thank you for, being willing to do this.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, yes.
Do we want
Thank
to
you.
vote to approve it, or at this point?
I think it would be helpful with the one modification that we made.
Mm-hmm.
Are you entertaining motions?
I am.
All right. I move for the select board to approve the license agreement with Shady Point as amended this evening in section 11.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you,
again.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Take care
Thank
now.
you.
You too.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right, up next, we have a meeting with the Sewer Commission Chair for a presentation on sewer pump station clog issues.
John Reynolds, 91 Lancaster Ave, the current chairman of the Sewer Commission. First, I'd like to thank the Select Board for giving me the time to try to explain a growing problem and to help our 1,000 customers understand that this problem is getting worse also. As everyone knows, the sewer rates are going up mostly from an increase in materials, manpower, and disposal fees, but there is one thing that customers can do to help keep their prices down, and that's the purpose of being here, and it has to do with clogs at the pump station. Now, Heather, do you have control of, so
Yeah,
if you want to put the first slide up.
It's up behind you. So,
Okay.
okay, there you go.
It's a cute slide. Toilets are not trash cans. That should be pretty obvious. But if I could just have a little visual here to explain that. Okay, this bottle has toilet paper on it. If I would take it out, it would come out in a million little pieces. This bottle has paper towel in it. If I would take this out, it would still be pretty, stay in a solid piece. And this has been in here since 6:30 tonight, okay? Same with the toilet paper. This is a disposable.
I don't know if they're going to get your audio. You might be a little too far
I'm sorry.
away.
This is just a disposable wipe, and I would just like to take a moment to okay, this just doesn't disintegrate. This has been in the water.
I want to just get into the microphone.
I'm
I just
sorry.
want to make sure
This
everyone
has been
at
in the
home can
water
hear
for
you.
3 weeks. 3 weeks, actually probably 4. When was I going to present?
Yeah, it was like 4
Last
weeks
time,
ago.
it was a week before that, so probably 4 weeks. I mean, this just doesn't come apart, and it's considered flushable. So if you could go to the next slide, Heather. I mean, that's what trash looks like to people who are throwing it in the toilet. To the sewer department, that's what wipes and paper towel, dental floss, and other items looks like. That it clogged that shut down a 40 horsepower pump. And that particular clog was on a Monday. The following Wednesday, I drove by the same pump station. The technician was there unclogging a second pump. So if you could go to this next slide. Okay, that is the actual pump being pulled off, and you can see how it totally clogs up the impeller. Heather, you can go to the next slide. The blue ring there, that is a check valve with a clog in it that shuts the pump down also. And that pile on the floor is that same clog pulled out of the check valve. To unclog those, we've had 30 pumps shut down pumps have shut down 30 times since September. And it seems to be getting more and more frequently. I'm not sure why. And to clean those, it takes it's a minimum of 4 hours if it's off shift. And if a second person has to be called in, that person is entitled to 4 hours, so it gets to be pretty expensive. Plus, 2 years ago, one of the pumps did not shut down because of a clog, and it caused the motor to burn out, and it was a $17,000 repair. So you can see where it gets to be expensive. What can be done? We can look at putting grinders at each pump station, but that would be tens and tens of thousands of dollars to grind up whatever is coming into the wet well. We could pump the wet wells out more frequently, but that's $4,000 to $5,000 to do that each time we do it. And what's the right frequency? Once a month, every 2 weeks. I could do it on a Monday, and a clog could still happen on a Friday, so that really isn't an alternative. So that just simply leaves customers not throwing trash down the toilet. It's pretty simple, pretty basic. As I mentioned, we did have one pump burn out, and our pumps range in price from $10,000 to $38,000 each. That's just for the pumps. Worst case scenario is 2 pumps. Our systems are set up with redundancy. There's 2 pumps at each station. One time, the technician was there working on a pump, and the second one shut down for the same reason. Now, if he hadn't been there, these wells, the 3 large wet wells start to fill up in about 2 hours, and then we would start having issues with the sewer system backing up. So again, it's simply trying to make our 1,000 users aware that they just have to stop throwing things down the toilet, except for toilet paper. And we have sent flyers out with the bills several times in the past couple of years. It doesn't seem to have made a difference. It's getting worse. I'm not really sure why. I thought maybe part of it was during COVID, which is now over. People didn't have access to toilet paper. Maybe they were using wipes. I don't know. But I'm just asking that the customers stop throwing trash into the system. And here's a list. It's not a complete list of the items that can't go down. So anyway, I appreciate the time. Kind of a crude topic, but it's getting to be a major problem for us. So.
I'm guessing that last slide is probably the most important. Not telling people what they shouldn't, but that's what you should be able to flush, that last slide.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Basically, you can
Right?
only
This last
flush
slide
toilet
that's up there
paper.
now,
Yeah.
that's what you need. You don't need to tell people what they shouldn't. It's a much shorter list of what you can throw down the toilet.
Well, I mean,
Well, okay, paper towel. People think,
Right, but this slide says you should only,
yes, absolutely.
I just want to point out, it's incredibly helpful to actually see what these clogs look like, because it's actually shocking to see what people are flushing down the toilet. So, thank you for the presentation.
I have a question, Mr. Chair. How many, 2 things, if you know, and I understand if you don't off the top of your head, but how many clogs were there last fiscal year, and how much money did those clogs cost?
I don't have a number for that, but since September, we've had pump shut down 30 times.
30.
30.
Wow.
So that's 10 runs.
It's more than every other week.
I'm sorry?
It's more than one every other week
Right.
since September.
Yeah, close, yeah.
Right. And it's more frequently with the large pump stations. And again, if 2 pumps should shut down, I mean, the absolute worst scenario is if 2 pumps shut down and the alarms didn't go off and the high water level alarm didn't go off. It's likelihood of that happening pretty slim, but it could happen. And as I mentioned, the large wells will start backing up in about 2 hours. That will become a EPA disaster. Any other questions?
Yes. So, thank you for this presentation. In my professional experience, I've seen this a lot. Always shocking that people flush plastic bags, or they walk the dogs and then they'll flush the doggy bag down the toilet. They'll clean the litter box and flush the litter down the toilet. But when you're dealing with, in town, we have some large residential developments, and my understanding is that when you send the sewer bill, it's going to the property owner, not to the users, who are the people who are actually flushing things down the toilet. So I know that in the past, I've had difficulty communicating beyond the management level to any residents at the large developments in the Whalum area. Have you guys had success being able to do public education to the residents in those larger developments to reach them directly, not just the management groups?
No, in the past, the only thing that has been done is sending out a little flyer in the sewer bill. So and that's a good suggestion. So we wanted to do this at the select board, and hopefully there's a few users watching this. And we are also talking about running a full-page ad or information session in the Lunenburg Ledger.
I would also recommend what I found to be helpful, because again, I've experienced this consistently when I used to manage larger residential developments, was that, when the sewer department would often reach out to the management group to say, hey, can we have a seminar, or can we send out flyers directly to the residents, and that way they can get actually distributed? Because I think a lot of times it stops at the bill paying office, and a lot of times with these larger companies, the people who pay the bills, not the people who are there every day. And so it may be helpful. I think that what you're doing is great, but I'm not trying to blame anyone, but I do recognize from my own experience that this has been a recurring theme in larger developments.
We're not alone.
No, it's everywhere.
It's definitely not alone.
Yeah, and so I think it may be helpful.
We're a small system, a small community. It shouldn't be as hard to reach out to all the people that are using the system.
Okay.
So
Yep, that's all I would encourage, is just reaching out to the client, to the tenant base at some of the larger developments.
I think part of it might be, and this happens with many things in life, people are probably thinking, oh, I'm the only one doing it.
Yes.
But, it starts to add up.
Correct.
So,
It's kind of like stopping us at the grocery store. Everyone thinks they're the only one who does it, and they don't realize that we can't get to the store in less than 45 minutes, because everyone's doing it.
Okay, all right,
So
great,
similar.
thank you.
Do you have any statistics from Leominster or Fitchburg that, for a community of our size, that it's happening more here than it is in their cities?
No, I don't, but certainly can reach out to them. Dave McDonald and I had breakfast with the former DPW director, who's now working in Gardner, and it's an issue they have too.
Okay. I'm just wondering if it's more frequent here for a smaller group, or it's proportional. I realize it's a problem everywhere, I understand that. I'm just wondering if it's proportional to what everybody else is, or is it worse or better? But if it's still happening, it's not much better.
Have we posted any notices on our Facebook or anything? I can't remember if we have.
Well, that's another thing we've thought of doing, put something.
Maybe we
I
can post
think,
something on our Facebook.
I mean, I don't know how you
reminding
feel
customers.
about it.
It's another
but-
way to reach out to
it's a good
the
idea.
users.
I mean, to me, this sort of says it all.
Yeah,
right
it's-
here.
Yeah.
That's
should
like that
post
shock
that.
value of, this is a real problem here. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I don't think there is. Thank
Okay,
you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
These can be very costly. I mean, even inside a building, I think I was telling you earlier, I mean, when one of these things went, it destroyed a gym, it was like $60,000 initially in initial damage, and then all the equipment had to get replaced. So, I mean, people flushing plastic bags, they don't think about, as he said, that everyone's doing it, but a lot of people do it.
Yeah, that's actually shocking to me.
This is the problem with people's septic systems, too.
Mm-hmm.
Both Dan Proctor and Bob Proctor have been called in to look at septic systems, and they take the lid off, and it's just filled
Yeah.
with trash, well, whites.
Yeah, it doesn't help that they say flushable on the
Right.
package.
That's like the one thing I
I
can
don't
really
understand.
understand, but like plastic bags, I mean, whatever.
We have found mop heads in the Leominster pump station.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Well, obviously, you can't flush
Flush
that.
it down the
That got
toilet.
in somehow else.
Yeah.
Nobody flushed that. Nobody flushed the
Well, the
mop.
lines coming from the school are large.
Well, okay, well, I guess they're...
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Good
John.
night.
All right, so we'll move on to appointments, and we'll invite up Mr. Passios. And I know you've spoken to this before, but if you want to remind us why you want to be on the Historical Commission.
Yeah, Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. Historical Commission specifically to help move forward with the pending inventory of historic locations in Lunenburg. The commission has received a grant, and that will go out to bid, I believe, sometime this summer or this fall or early winter. And then once that is completed, and something that's been dragging for a number of years because they tried to do it with volunteers, but once that's complete and the locations are on the historic list, then it opens up opportunities for grants through historical venues or sources. So that's one of my major goals for wanting to be on there. They do tend to have a problem with quorums occasionally, and you know my record on meeting attendance. I'd also like to make a comment about previous commenter. Obviously, that gentleman is not aware of my two-decade history in this town on elected and appointed boards, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And by the way, the chair of the Historical Commission sent us an email very shortly before the meeting endorsing Mr. Passios. So are there any questions or comments?
I just want to be reminded, and for no other reason than I want to be reminded for myself, what committees you are currently on again?
Yes, I am vice chair of the Green Communities Committee, and I'm on FinCom. That's it.
And the position that you're doing on the Historical Commission, if I remember from our last thing, is to fill in 1 year.
To finish out a term of 1 year.
To finish.
That's
okay.
correct.
Because as a comment, I have been against appointing people to multiple bodies. Mr. Passios was the recipient of a no vote from me one of those times. I will vote on this time because it's a very short-lived time, but I would not be for him if he was on the other two committees. If he went for a 3-year term, I would not be for it.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure, be clear, that I also am very cognizant of people being on too many committees.
I'd like to also take this opportunity to let you know that I'm advocating for our next generation of municipal volunteers and elected officials. You'll be voting on an appointment next Tuesday, I believe, that I initiated the contact for that one. And I'm telling everybody out there that I talk to that, there's great opportunities out there to give back to the town. And even this seat here, although it's very short, I'm willing to give it up if there's somebody that really, really wants to be involved.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair. Mr. Passios, I think I admire your public service. I do not hold any of those reservations that were expressed earlier. You are a professional in all ways that you volunteer. You're even-handed, you're not a heavy-handed person, you're a team player in all situations. I've worked with you in different contexts, and I have thoroughly enjoyed the pleasure of working with you, but also the advice that you offer, your willingness to compromise, your willingness to have strong opinions, but still do what's in the best interest of the group. I don't have any reservations at all about you volunteering for multiple committees, but I do think, generally speaking, I understand why there is a general reservation, but I think with all things, there's always exceptions, and for me, you are greatly an exception. I want to thank you for stepping forward to be on the Historical Commission. I think it's important for our community to have things recorded, but also to make sure that we are recognizing the history of our community and making sure that's woven into the fabric of our town. I know it's a challenge for people who are under 45 to volunteer in this community. I've made no qualms about my struggles, even remaining on this board, and that I'm coming off of it, not looking back, and certainly not volunteering for anything for a bit of time, but it is hard. And so, having public servants who are willing to step forward and do the good work, I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you for your comments. I think Zoom has opened it up quite a bit more for the younger generations, even if they, in fact, for a short time when I went back to work out of retirement, I would do meetings, or at least half a meeting, in the break room where I was working locally. I mean, being able to connect through via Zoom and participate as a member of the committee or board is.
And people are having kids later, so I mean, by the time people are 40, a lot of people have 10-year-olds or even 5-year-olds, and so it is just a later cycle now. And it makes it hard, given the demands of work, and it makes it challenging. But I do hope that we've seen, as on this board, several people under 45 step up. We've seen it in other areas, and it's got to be a transition. But we have to be welcoming, and there needs to be that handoff of knowledge from people who have it, who have the experience of what our town was like 40 years ago or more. There has to be that pass-off. So, thank you.
Selectman Emke.
So, one comment and I guess a couple questions. So one, thank you for stepping forward and volunteering for another committee. And just to confirm, the term would be June 2025?
Yes.
Yes.
And you mentioned that they have difficulty getting a quorum sometimes?
Yes, including a meeting on, what was that, Heather? July 3rd, 2nd? Tuesday before the 4th, whatever that was.
I wasn't,
So
here.
Yeah.
The only reason I ask is, well, one, there is no June 2025 term on the website, so clearly this isn't up to date, but how many members are there currently?
Full membership is 5 members.
But there's only 3
And
right now.
Has that been?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so this just hasn't
Let
been
Heather speak
updated.
to that, because there's a correction in there.
yeah, Mr. Lasko's term is incorrect on that. And that was in your appointment list, was a correction to be made for June 2025.
Yep.
And so the board did not reappoint Megan Lorden, so that will be a vacancy.
Okay.
So I just emailed.
So you'll make 5?
Site person to.
You'll be the
Yeah.
5th
Well,
member? Okay.
Yeah, there's only 5.
No, but he'll be the 5th. There's
Yeah.
not, that's not down the
Correct.
street.
No,
Megan was
fourth.
reappointed.
So there's 2 vacancies now.
Oh, there's another vacancy, okay.
Yes.
No.
Reappoint Megan.
So there's, Mr. Lasko did not want to be reappointed. The board did not reappoint Megan. So there's 2, this would fill one of those vacancies. So there'd be
there'll still be a vacancy.
one vacancy after tonight.
So there'll still be one, and there's the challenge, you get a 5-member board with down 2,
Yeah.
then you have no room for absentees. So at least this will bring it up to 4.
Megan did not want to be reappointed?
She did not respond to any of the
Oh, well,
requests.
that's the equivalent of not wanting to be reappointed.
Just as I made the point there a few weeks ago also, I think it's really important to make sure we know how the communication was put out there to notify these people. Because if there's only one method used, i.e. an email through the town email, that may not be sufficient for some of these folks. That's up to you guys as the board, as the appointing authority. But I think, additional attempts need to be made, not necessarily reported, but at least, know that
Yeah.
made a good effort to.
But in theory, these people should be attending the meetings and know when their terms are up.
For sure, yeah.
So I hear what you're saying, but I also think if someone's not attending meetings and clearly don't want to
Yep.
continue, then we do at some point have to move forward if we have someone that wants to be appointed.
The other little piece that's going to be super important going forward with all the time that Heather has spent trying to sort out these expiration dates is that when you do a vote, that part of the vote is accurate expiration date, so it's in the minutes.
Yes.
For sure.
And I think just as a comment, respectfully, I mean, our process, we did revamp the appointment process. It was not rigidly followed this year, and some of that just happens, with staffing changes and then timing and just a lot of stuff. So I think I'm aware that it wasn't rigidly followed, and certainly I hope that next year, I won't be here for the appointments, but I hope that it will be, it takes time sometimes, so, yeah.
All right, any other questions? Is there a motion?
I move to appoint Mr. Passios to the Historical Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Passios.
Thank you, Mr. Passios.
All right, moving on to the town manager report.
Start with board and committee commission vacancies. There is one vacancy on the Agricultural Commission, one vacancy on the Architectural Preservation District Commission, one vacancy that is a joint appointment with the Board of Health until the next annual town election for Board of Health, 3 vacancies on the Cultural Council. There's 2 associate vacancies on the Green Communities Committee, 1 member-at-large vacancy on the Open Space Committee, 1 vacancy on the Parks Commission, which is a joint appointment with the Park Commission until the next annual town election, and that will be next Tuesday, that joint meeting with the Parks Commission to do that appointment. 5 vacancies on the Personnel Committee, and 2 vacancies on the Sewer Commission, which is our joint appointments with the Sewer Commission until the next annual town election. And as noted just in the prior discussion, 1 vacancy on the Historical Commission. Anyone interested in any of these positions can contact the Select Board's office and find out the roles and responsibilities as well. If you want to call us, it's 978-582-4130, extension 144. And the appointment applications are on the website. For employment opportunities with the town, we have a administrative assessing assistant position for 32 hours a week, assistant to the sewer business manager, 19 hours a week, interim town manager, which is contractual, land use director, which is 40 hours a week, network administrator, which is 40 hours a week, public safety desk clerk, 40 hours a week, and a seasonal cemetery laborer, which those hours vary. Any information on those positions can be found on the town website under job opportunities. For staffing updates, as of today, our facilities director will be out on paternity leave for up to 8 weeks. In his absence, questions are to be directed to the facilities superintendent. Normally, I meet with the facilities director weekly to review the status of current and pending projects and any other information related to facilities or park items. So I would likely check in with the facilities superintendent and the parks director as well for any updates. With the exception of vacations, the finance team, which consists of myself, the finance director, treasurer collector, and principal assessor, have been meeting weekly. We started that in May. Update on the Conservation Department on the backlog of applications. Since being appointed the building commissioner, land use manager, Brian Gingras has worked with the Conservation Department staff and has developed a corrective action plan to address the backlog of applications. He has completed the initial assessment of the backlog with the Conservation Administrator and Administrative Assistant, and there are 17 decisions that have not been drafted or issued where the Commission voted between November 1st, 2023 and July 1st, 2024. Some of these are simple negative requests for determinative applicability. They have also located 21 filings between July 1st, 2023 and November 1st, 2023 that do not appear to have documents issued. The list is now being worked on with a combination of staff from the Conservation and Building Department to get caught up, and he believes the target date of August 20th to have all the decisions into DocuSign appears to be a workable date at this time. For requests for proposals and invitation for bids, the bids for the library solar shade project are due July 31st, and the bids for the trash and recycling services are due July 17th. Based on questions that we've received to date on the trash and recycling services bid, we may be extending this bid deadline to July 24th in order to respond with an addendum. For the budget calendar, I've drafted a budget calendar for the board, the finance committee, and capital planning committee to review for the upcoming year. This was sent to the select board chair, finance chair, capital planning chair, and members of the budget task force.
Any questions for the town manager?
I have one. Can you remind me the current contract for the trash and recycling that was extended?
Is the end of September.
September, okay.
We have had multiple inquiries into it, though, so.
Any other questions?
And I know the board, I did notify you through email that the state did award the network gap program funding to Verizon, which included Lunenburg. So I have reached out to our government liaison, but have not heard any information back from her yet. Basically, what is the timeline? What is the funding? What are the areas that will be included?
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to offer a comment. I want to just thank the town manager. I know that time with Heather is getting short, but I want to thank Heather for firing on all cylinders. It's clear that her passion and commitment to our community, it's self-evident. There has been normally when employees are in their last month or so, there's usually kind of like a checkout process that happens, and it definitely hasn't happened. So I just want to thank the town manager for her steadfast commitment to the community.
Thank you. Mine's more like a checklist.
All right, awesome. Any other questions? All right, so moving on to old business. Up first is discussion on tax investigation report.
Sure. I sent the board prior to this meeting an email with an update. So the current document is now, I think, 58 or 59 pages long. There still is one more section that needs to be added, which is the exhibit and evidence section that needs to be added, and so I'll make sure that that gets added. It may be helpful as we go forward, since this is a bit of a long document, to maybe in our future meetings to set aside time so that way members can provide feedback on things they've already read. As we continue, it's easier to comment as on smaller pieces than 100 and something. It's going to end up being, I think the total it's long, so it's easier to comment in smaller sections. But I did email that out to everyone right before the meeting.
Today?
Today.
It's probably while we were already in the building.
Yeah, I mean.
I don't have it. I got Mandy's while she was sitting here.
Let me check.
Check your outbox.
So this happened last time. I said I sent something and it didn't go through.
Did you?
All right, let me try to send it from my phone.
Yeah, I don't have it either.
All right, I'll send it from my phone right now. But yeah, I see Mandy's as well.
Are there any questions for him while we wait?
Well, I'll wait for the I'll wait for the final report. I mean, I have
Trying to
lots
fill
of
the
notes,
silence.
and the first thing I'll note is that we are now, since we created the investigative team, and I'll put team in quotes, it has been 18 months. So now I really, I question even the validity of anything that's going to be in the report 18 months later that the Board of Assessors may not have already corrected in time, but there are significant deficiencies in the draft that we have been given, not including tonight's non-email yet. So I have lots and lots and lots of notes.
Well, feel free to send them along if you'd like, Mr. Alonso.
Well, I'm not going to send them along until there's a final, I mean, because I don't know when the final is going to be.
All right.
All right. Any other discussion on this tonight? Sounds like a no. All right, moving on. Discussion on use of information technology resources policy. So I revised it based on our conversation. I split it up for staff and volunteers so that they both can go in the right place. And I added it to the drive, hopefully. Let me see. Yes, okay. So the document here, these are two separate ones. So the one up top that just says use of information technology resources policy, that's the staff part. And then the second one here, Article 2, operational policies, that's under our select board policies. That'll be the paragraph that we would add there for appointed and elected board members. But it's pretty similar to what it was like the last time we discussed it. I think I captured all of the feedback, but I'll just let people read it, and if there's any questions or comments, I can try to answer them.
I think it's what we discussed, Mr. Chair. The only question or point of discussion, I would say, is under the appointed and elected. In those places where people are members of more than one elected or appointed body.
Yeah.
And those other bodies, some bodies have Google Drives. They shouldn't have access to the Google Drives for those committees. That's why access to Google Drive should not be by user. They should be by group.
Right, and it is, I believe,
Okay.
because I've checked on this, and I've experienced it myself as well, and someone else recently did too. That actually is very consistently shut off like immediately. So I think that's why I actually changed the wording, so it was specifically just about email, because it seems like everything else we're actually really good at, so.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'm fine with, this is what we had discussed, yes.
Yep. Any other questions, comments?
Are you looking for us to adopt this?
If there is support among the board to vote on it tonight, we can.
Sure.
I'm not in a rush, but just keep in mind, these are two different policies, so we're gonna have to craft the motion accordingly.
Well, I would move that we adopt the additions to the use of information technology resources policy, section N, as noted, under electronic communication devices, and also amend Article 2 of operational policies, section 2.03, use of information technology resources policy for appointed and elected boards and committees, by the addition of the termination of email access paragraph as presented to the board.
Second.
Any additional discussion? And I'll also just let the town manager, if she has any feedback too, because I see you writing a lot of stuff down.
No, I'm just kind of writing what was
Like
said.
okay, cool.
No comments. I think
All right,
it
good.
was well drafted.
All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. And that was both of them, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, moving on to discussion on outdoor dining policy. So we got feedback from the planning board. I don't know if you guys have reviewed it yet, but I was thinking we could just go through point by point and then just sort of discuss on, you know, what members are thinking about in terms of what we want here. And where is it? Hold on one second. Here it is. Okay, so the first point is the outdoor dining policy needs a clear statement to applicants which identifies various boards and departments from whom approval or at least consultation is necessary. It would be helpful to identify and include a list of common or typical conditions which may require additional approvals beyond the select board action on a license. So that's pretty straightforward. I don't really know what like a list of common or typical conditions would exactly mean, but And then 2, applicants should be directed to consult with those departments and boards prior to submitting an application, also straightforward. 3, the planning board feels it is essential for the planning board and land use department to be included in the list of departments and boards which are identified as entities with which applicants should consult when considering outdoor dining. It is possible that such outdoor facilities may conflict with previously approved site plans and/or special permits for the site. 4, to give some context to the board's comments, this is the planning board, their decisions typically require compliance with the approved plans. Adding an outdoor patio would be in conflict with the approved plans and would typically result in reductions or changes in outdoor lighting and parking spaces. It could be a change of which triggers the requirements for submitting an application site plan approval under the Lunenburg zoning bylaw. However, we recognize that the building commissioner, as the zoning enforcement officer under state law, makes a determination on what constitutes a, quote, change of use. And 5, the policy needs to identify the procedural steps with approval for an outdoor dining permit by the select board, coming only after approval has been granted for related required permits by other Lunenburg boards and departments. So that one's also straightforward. So is there any discussion on the planning board feedback before we move on?
My understanding is that this board should really only be involved as far as the alcohol license portion of it. I mean, if it's just outdoor seating, I think that's all under the planning board and should remain under the planning board. So the only thing that should come to this board is if restaurants who have liquor license, alcohol licenses, want to extend that to an outdoor seating plan. At which point, I would say they need to get the outdoor seating plan approved first anyway.
Right. I agree, and the reason why we're doing this is specifically for the alcohol at the outdoor,
Right.
just to clarify.
But in those cases where a establishment may not have an alcohol license and it's just a common vit license, they wouldn't even need to come to this board for an outdoor seating. They should just go to the planning board and the Board of Health.
So what we need to implement is specifically for establishments that hold both a common vic and a general on-premise alcohol license.
Well, I guess what I'm suggesting is that we should set up an outdoor seating plan procedure first with an addendum that says if you want to serve alcohol there, then there's this added part of the process. I think we should be able to handle both in one policy, where one policy refers to another one. I think they're two separate issues at hand here. Because I think what the planning board brings up as far as lighting and parking spaces and everything are very, very legitimate.
Right, but it's not really what we're doing as
Right.
alcohol.
No, I'm saying, but they still need, it's been brought up through this back channel, but we should let them handle the outdoor planning process.
Yes.
And we should just handle
The alcohol.
the alcohol part of it.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So all of the planning for the outdoor thing should be, the physical setup of the outdoor plan should be on the planning board and the land use director, from my perspective. And the only thing we should be brought into is like, okay, if it's approved, first of all, are there any scenarios that we can come up with that we wouldn't extend? Like, what would be the additional things they would need to do, like separation? Like, somebody can't just come in and out, so it would have to be a separation from the general public of that outdoor plan would be a requirement of the alcohol license, maybe not a requirement of an outdoor seating plan without an alcohol license. So I think it lasers our focus on one specific thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and it's pretty much what I take away from this too, because all of the things about like the actual outdoor area, it's not really relevant to us.
Us, right.
Yeah. Any other discussion?
I've found, and I want to say this pretty directly to Mr. Alonso, that we've worked together for many years, and it certainly isn't personal. I just haven't. I found that I have not often disagreed with you, but I think tonight I just don't agree with you. And again, I just say that not to be personal, because I generally think that Mr. Alonso and I are pretty aligned in many of our views on many things. I'm of the mindset that, I don't want to be too theoretical here, but when we were in a crisis situation, which was the pandemic, we acted in a way that was favorable to our businesses and that has resulted in 0 problems. So why are we going to create a process that is far more challenging and difficult when the one that we created in a crisis mode worked? But to me, you have to have, and I think we recognize this in the crisis, that the rules of normal life have to work at all times, whether there's a crisis or not. And if it worked then, and it has still worked in these years since COVID has, and all the restrictions have been lifted, to me, I don't think we should do a big change from what the current policy is, which is allowing for, us to make those modifications. I do think that to Mr. Alonso's point, that if a business is opening up and they are designating outdoor seating area as part of their plan, that they're going to have to go through a planning board process anyway, or it's going to go through the building commissioner regardless. And so those are, to me, already built-in factors. And I think in this case, what we're talking about is how does a business now, either an existing business who's already been doing it, continue to do it, and how does a new business get to do it? And I think the more steps we create to the process, I mean, we heard from, the residents who were here last about the golf course, and again, I had a different opinion on that, where I thought we were abdicating a lot of our duties. But I think that the floor plan matters a lot. I think that is what we are looking at, is in the event of an emergency, how does someone get out? And we don't need to be subject matter experts in that area, but I think it's something we need to consider, just like we need to consider how do other people get in. So if there's a floor plan and we can identify, hey, these are the different points, hey, you might need to put up barriers here to restrict the free flow of alcohol, that may not become a concern in a planning board or building commissioner process, because restricting access to patrons isn't what they're into. But that certainly would be something we would need to look at, of making sure that an area that meets those requirements comply. My point is, I don't think we need to do all this. I'm of the opinion that what we are doing is working, and let's keep doing it.
So I just want to address one point. The real reason why we're doing this is because at first the state was the approval authority and now we are. So it's confusing to businesses because the town, as the new approving authority, does not have a well-defined application process and most importantly, a resource from the town side of it for that update. So that's really what we need. And, we don't have to add all these regulations, and it's also not so much about the policy. It's just about having a clearly defined application process written down on a piece of paper that we can give to business owners so that they know exactly how to get these approvals from the town, now that it's on us.
And that can't be achieved with a simple modification that requires a floor plan and just add the words, "and outdoor seating plan."
No, not to me.
Okay.
Because the ability to do outdoor seating was woven out of whole cloth from the state under an emergency condition, because they didn't want businesses closing. Enough businesses closed anyway. Whalen Diner closed because they couldn't keep open and stuff like that. So emergency situations require emergency policies. But once those emergencies don't happen, taking up parking spaces and making outdoor seating should have always been under the purview of the planning board. They circumvented all that because they wanted people to act, because the businesses were caught in a very bad financial situation. They would have closed. So not to have them close, they gave them this offering. But now that we're not under those situations, it should go back to the authorities who handle, hey, you're taking up too many parking spaces, or you don't have enough lighting, or you're expanding your footprint so much that now you don't have sufficient parking spaces for our own policy. Now, I don't want to make things difficult. I want to make things clear. And the state didn't make things clear. The state just said, hey, we're going to allow this. You just approve. If you sign up for it, it's all done for you. And now that we don't have that, we need a policy to put in its place. By rights, we should have been working on such a thing last year. We didn't, because there was a lot of other stuff going on, but I think it has to be done.
Yeah.
I don't think it was, mean, it only became known recently that this was going to be made permanent for outdoor dining.
Yeah,
That was a
actually,
recent,
It was in April.
yeah, April.
Right, but I mean,
when-
but we could have said that, we could have probably potentially anticipated, I don't know that we would have known, but potentially anticipated that these businesses who did that would probably want to keep it, and they probably could lobby enough to the state that this was at least a possibility. But anyway, you're right, I mean, that's why we need a policy now, at least.
But we don't have to make it so restrictive.
I'm not making it restrictive, I'm
No, I'm
saying
just
that it
saying
should
as a
fit.
general goal.
Right.
Right, because I think, going back to our last conversation about this, I think, some of the things that were included in it was maybe seen as a little too restrictive, right?
Well, that example, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's in the drive. I think
Yep,
you have
it
it
is.
pulled up now.
So
where it's-
like,
yeah, some of the department
I'll
head
let you speak
feedback.
to it, because I think you're probably the most opinionated on some of these.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think it was the department head feedback that, if I recall, one of them was like limiting the propane heaters to two
The
per
crash
permit.
protection. Yes.
And then, which,
The bottom
yeah, and then the other thing was the crash protection, which of
Mm-hmm.
course is all these design standards of how deep do they need to be, what materials do they need to be made of, and all you see is cost, cost, cost. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, we have to be mindful that we already don't have a lot of, like, bars aren't doing this for the most part, these are restaurants. And we already don't have a lot of restaurants in town. I mean, who's actively doing this right now? I mean, it's three businesses.
Yeah, three.
I mean, we just had one business close down from not generating enough income and getting into issues with outstanding taxes. So to create, to me, more requirements onto small businesses, I think we have to be careful about that, especially when they're already in an environment, again, where they've been operating without incident.
So are we talking about just identifying what the process is and
Yes.
clarifying it? Because I'm looking at the examples of the
Mm-hmm.
other towns that are in there, and some of them are just not things that are necessarily under our purview, but just delineating the process and making it more easily accessible.
Right. That's sort of what my response to Selectman Alonso was, and I was just going to reiterate, like, really our goal here is not to add additional regulations. It's just to create a town resource that defines the application process that a business owner can get, and it can help them through this process, more so than anything.
Well, but that's exactly what I said. I said,
I know.
we defer to the planning board. Let
saying
the
the
planning
same
board
thing
decide
in
what the
different
process is,
Mm-hmm.
what the requirements are. I mean, hearing requirements for safety reasons, again, I'm not here to defend or not, or defend or attack, how many propane heaters they should have. I mean,
Right.
I'm sure the fire department and the fire chief and his team can speak much more educated than I can about such a thing. I just think they should be involved in that situation. I want to help businesses define the process and make it accessible and not making it overly burdensome. On the same token, I want people who go to these places to feel safe, that somebody doesn't say, hey, one of the things is called tents. There's got to be structure. If you're going to put an outside awning, it's got to be structural so that nobody's going to feel fear of
Yeah.
something collapsing or something. So, I don't think those are outrageous considerations.
But is that our purview to
No.
create?
No.
No, well, it's our purview to say what the process could, if I may, Mr. Chair, if our purview is, if you want to get a liquor license for outdoor seating, what you have to do is, first of all, get an outdoor seating plan approved by the planning board. That's
Yes.
step one. And then come to us, and then if they approve it, and it meets basic criteria that maybe are above and beyond what the basic plan would be, then we'll approve it. Like, those are the two things we need to do. Go to the planning board, get outdoor seating, and then come to us for the license, and these are maybe additional requirements.
Alcohol license.
So there are a
What is it
lot
that
of.
we actually have to do? I
So
guess I'm
we'll
now-
approve like
We have
the
to create the
alcohol
policy.
license part of it. So we have to just create this policy with like a well-defined application process. Really, that's what we need to do. It's the application process.
Yep.
So I have one written here that I've put together, and I just want to say, there are a lot of other departments and boards that want to be a part of this than just the planning board as well.
Yep.
So if we also add the planning board and, what was the other one that they said, that they recommended we add, land use?
Land use, yeah.
Yes, that would be 8 boards and departments that we would need to get approval from.
Well, who-
So it's
who
kind
are the
of
other
maybe
ones?
excessive.
I'm assuming Board of Health.
Yeah, so building department, fire department, police department, DPW, Board of Health, planning board, land use.
I guess DPW would be the one I would ask why, but again,
Yeah.
It could be proximity to the road and right away.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think this, to me, I'm going to offer just another comment. One-stop shops in which the licensing authority does a lot of this legwork itself. It makes it easier for the applicant to get through. And in my opinion, we should be moving in the direction of trying to be more like a one-stop shop. I mean, you should not need a PhD in the town of Lunenburg bylaws to figure out how to navigate it. And I think that as we get more complicated, while these things might sound simple, you can't go before the planning board without an architect writing your plans. How much is that going to cost? And so and then the timeline. They have statutory requirements of how long they can take to make decisions. So what happens to the business owner who doesn't think about this stuff until about February, March? They've just they're out of the season. And so I think that so my point is, although these things sound like simple stuff, if we put ourselves in the role of the applicant, how challenging is this? I mean, we have a pretty clear alcohol policy, and we had an applicant who thought it was too confusing or wasn't able to follow it properly. And that was only 3 steps, really, in my opinion. So I think as we make it more complicated, and I think it's also, what are other communities doing? Other communities are making the permitting process easier. We've heard, I don't know any business owner that's ever said to me, doing business in Lunenburg is easy. And so at some point, we have to start thinking, how do we make it easier? So how do we have more than 3 restaurants in town and not be a food desert? We have to start making some of this stuff a little easier, and I don't think the way to go about it. Maybe how we approach this is, maybe we need to act as that one-stop shop. And maybe when we get the request, that we can funnel that information out for feedback, just like we do with first rights of refusal. Maybe we put a time limit on it of how long they all have. But that way, from the time an applicant submits the request to the time it's approved or denied, it's one request, it's not 15 boards or departments, and it can just be easier for them. Because again, the problem we're trying to fix is one that we haven't had a problem with. So
I can say we're working on adding more departments to OpenGov, including our office, but that's not going to happen tomorrow by the time this policy or procedure is in place. But that is moving in that direction. And that's where everybody that's using OpenGov internally can log on and see the status of any application. So that is an internal review process. So comments can be made on an application, like they don't have their fire inspections done, or they're not in compliance with their special permit. So that is something that's being worked on by the building commissioner with those. Conservation right now has been a focus. He's also working with the planning department as well to move all their applications. So we are moving in the line of streamlining applications and for internal review. But
when I had my garage built, it was easy on OpenGov to follow who was approving it and the permits and the and when the approvals and the inspections came in, so it was very good. I mean, the success or failure of this will be not in the process itself, but it's going to be communicating to the applicants what the process is. I'm looking at Salem's, and Salem's has 7 different departments and licenses. They have outdoor dining area license, a building commissioner approval, licensing board approval, Salem Redevelopment Authority approval, Salem Board of Health approval, Disability Commission approval, and licensing board and additional licenses. So it's not uncommon. I'm sorry it's complex, but we don't have, quote, as select board member Jeffrey says, a restaurant desert because we have bad process. We have if we have a restaurant desert, which I would question to begin with, we have restaurants closing because they don't have good business models. We have bad landlords who have overreaching rents, that people can't afford with the businesses. I mean, it's not the policies that are keeping people out.
No, I agree with you, Mr. Alonso. There's a lot of reasons. I mean, I would just venture that Salem probably gets more than 2% of their revenue from a retail base, as does Andover, as does Newbury. I mean, I think we have to consider that, for a small town, that we're not like these cities or larger communities that have a higher percentage of their tax base coming from businesses, that, you know, to me, we should be promoting business. And anyway, all right. Where I'm at on this is I'm okay with as limited as a simple word in the policy that says an outdoor policy. Everything else beyond that, I don't know how much I can contribute positively, because that's how minimal I'm open to being on this one.
Well, I think you did contribute positively, because I think this was a very productive conversation. Is there anything else we want to talk about tonight on this?
Can I just add?
Yes.
2 things I think the board needs to keep in mind with drafting this is, one, you've already discussed that it meets all the permitting requirements of all the internal boards, that you're not approving something that isn't properly approved through other departments. And 2, that you're maintaining that enforcement perimeter. That's what's been an important key with any liquor licenses, of making sure that enforcement of the boundaries of where liquor is served within that is maintained and enforceable. So.
Thank you. All right, sorry, I was just making a note of one of those things. All right, so anything else we want to say?
So what is our timeline for getting something together? I guess that would be the
Well, we
question.
extended the temporary policy, so I wouldn't say it's urgent, right? Would you agree with that, or?
I'd say the sooner the
Well,
better.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's on us.
If, you know, keeping it simple, then it shouldn't take too long to put together.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to ARPA. So, let me just find my notes on this. So last meeting, we talked about using ARPA funds for our contractor. That's going to help with our munis issues. And it seemed like we were all on board with that. Is that true? Okay.
Yes.
So is there anything that would prevent us from voting on that tonight? Would it be helpful if we do that sooner rather than later, or?
I'm sorry, voting on committing those funds?
Yes, for that.
Were we gonna get a scope of work or what the expectation was before we try to commit funds for that?
We probably could, but it's my understanding that we've already used this contractor, right? Didn't we discuss that?
Yes, but through the budget.
Oh, I see. Right, it would just be extending it with ARPA money.
Right.
So, okay. Do you think we would need to discuss any of those things?
No, I think you can keep it general,
Mhm.
because it's gonna cover, you know, kind of just general assistance with the town.
Mhm.
But I don't have anything from the finance director yet on what a scope of work would be.
Okay.
Or a number, right? We
Right,
don't
the
have
number
to
is
be-
probably more important than the scope of work. I know what their scope
we
of
did-
work is gonna be.
Yeah. We did have a number, but maybe it was just like an estimate.
It was an estimate.
Okay.
Based on his hourly.
Yeah, right.
I was thinking it was only 10,000 that we were talking about, but I would expect it would be higher because we talked about going out through 26. I would assume it's gonna be higher than that if we're talking about committing funds for the rest of that time frame.
I think the thought is we wouldn't need this person through 26,
Hopefully.
right? We were looking for the next year.
Yeah, until the end of, yeah. All right, well, I just wanted to bring that up, see where we were at with that, but.
Yeah, I mean, just a general comment about ARPA. My own personal opinion is I am much more comfortable having the money under contract by the end of 2024.
Yep.
And so the sooner we can start voting on appropriation of ARPA for some of these items, the better.
That's why I'm
It's-
trying to push it along a little bit.
So that's one, yeah, so can we look at some other requests and maybe advance them?
What are you
Because
talking about? What requests are you talking about?
anything, the unfunded capital projects that are in our drive, what other ARPA requests came through that didn't get funded? The current status of the money that we did commit is, what's in our drive now is up to date.
Yeah, I
There's no
updated it
changes?
today.
Okay. I haven't looked to see, were there any changes from the last?
The water district submitted some invoices for the public education and the pilot.
Okay.
So that number changed.
I mean, I expect they're gonna spend all of their money. What else? So, I have to remind myself, what is the balance?
And anything that can be sent back, like the police available balance, says the project's complete and the balance can be relocated, we should, again, kick that to the bottom line, you know.
I think
I
it
guess-
was.
I think it
guess-
is.
Yeah.
Oh, so then it shouldn't say balance can be relocated, so we should just modify that, I guess.
Have we, Mr. Chair, have we solicited, because, you know, my opinion is I don't think that ARPA was at all designed to be a local government cash grab. I think it was intended to funnel money back into the community through nonprofits and small businesses.
Yep.
And so have we reached out, are we in the process of reaching out to any more boards or businesses or nonprofits?
We were going to discuss that tonight.
Okay.
Because I'm ready to send an email out. I just wanted to get feedback from the board and also just an approval that I can go ahead and do that, so, but.
Yeah.
Because I do want to solicit requests like we did last time again. You know, I don't know if it's the best idea to, you know, go through the capital backlog for this. So I do want to send that email out as soon as possible. And I also just wanted to see if you guys have any feedback on, you know, information to include in the email in terms of like, I don't know, for example, if we want to like limit requests to a certain dollar amount or just anything like that. So I didn't want to send it without at least getting like people's feedback.
So are you saying you don't think we should consider any of the unfunded capital requests?
I don't think it's our place to do that with ARPA funds. If we put out requests to elected board members and they say, hey, like, this is one thing that you could use for ARPA, maybe, but.
I'm of the opinion, Mr. Chair, to answer Selectman Inke's question as well. I think that the process that we went through was the best we can come up with, given the variety of viewpoints from the members. I think I have consistently held the viewpoint that the funds should not be primarily used by the town of Lunenburg, that they should be used in the community that supports Lunenburg. And so I'm more interested in the future distribution of ARPA funding going to the organizations that support our community. I think that's, again, in line with the language. I did read the summary from the Department of Treasury. I did read a big chunk of the legislation itself. Very, very little is committed to talking about funding for towns. It's all about community engagement. And I think that, you know, for whatever reason, the path that we've taken is to look at our own funding gaps. But I'd rather see the money funneled back into the community.
But I also view it as it alleviates some of the burden from taxpayers.
Right.
If we can fund these projects. If buildings are gonna fall down, or roads are gonna, you know, sidewalks are gonna fall, whatever, that impacts the whole town. And things that have to be fixed, and who's gonna pay for that?
Also, I'll just say first, it doesn't have to be one or the other, right? Like, we
Right,
can
no,
balance
I'm sounding like you weren't gonna
priorities.
consider these requests. I think we
Right.
should consider them.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation about this too, today, before I sent out the email, just so we had a better idea of like, what are our priorities? So,
I mean, I don't know what the percentage is in terms of, again, I think the legislation here was pretty clear, in my opinion, about what the funding was for.
Yeah.
It was not how do municipalities pay for their capital needs.
probably have it written down. There were 4 qualifying expense
There were.
categories.
And you think about cities like Boston, which got, I think Boston received, how many hundreds of millions of dollars from this? They could only spend 10 million of it on their own municipal needs. And
Say that again, how much?
10 million was the cap of how much you're allowed to spend by municipality on other government business. So like the cities who all got 150 million or 80 million dollars, they were capped at 10 million. And the majority of the money went to those community organizations. It's only because our amount is less than 10 million that we can allocate up to 10 million on it. But I don't think I think I've been vocal. I never would have voted for ARPA if I was in Congress. I think it was bad legislation. Nonetheless, the fact that Congress did provide the funding, I I would like for us to try to lean into their intent here, which was to bring money into community organizations. And but I don't know how we go about doing that if our goal is to have everything under contract by the end of the calendar year. I don't think that that's attainable to be able to, I mean, we're already in July, so I mean, to solicit feedback, that's gonna take time, to sort through, it's gonna take time, and then for any awarding entity to be able to go through a public, basically, procurement process, I don't know realistically if there's even time now, if we're gonna require things to be under contract by well before December, the end of December.
Heather, you said it took about like 6 weeks from allocation?
Already did.
Oh, okay. I just remembered that.
I agree. It takes, can be 6 to 8 weeks, because
Okay.
upon, whole review, internal review, and, advertising, everything that's involved.
Yeah, so we have a couple months to get all this allocated. So ultimately by like really September or October.
Yep.
I think the default should be the capital
August,
plan.
I think end of summer.
I think that I'm more than willing to entertain, and we have, for those, we don't have a ton of nonprofits in town, and we've fulfilled what their requests are. If they have additional requests, I'll still be willing to entertain them. But the biggest shame would be that we were given $3.5 million. If we give a dollar back, we have not done our job.
Yeah.
Okay? And everything on the capital plan helps portions or the entire community.
Yep.
From, number one, what Ms. Emke said about tax revenue and saving historic buildings and sealing up envelopes of buildings so we don't have demolition by neglect, creating sidewalks. These are all things that we should want to do and are allowed to do. And, the intent may have been such, and if big cities were hamstrung by the 10 million, I'm like, okay, but they have big city issues, and there are other issues at stake. We don't have those restrictions. It's clear we don't have those restrictions. So, we should use the money to better the community as best we can. If some of those goes to nonprofits, great. Have them send more requests. But in the end of the day, that 3.5 million has to be committed and used in town.
I have full faith that we will be able to find something to allocate these funds for. So I'm just going to put that out there. But if
Can I
I
just-
am, sorry, go ahead.
Can I just check the total uncommitted balance with interest? Is it 295? Because it's dated September 5th, 23.
So that might have changed with the interest.
Okay.
Yep, but the principal.
But we're not talking millions of dollars, we're talking just shy of
No.
300,000.
Yeah,
but
we've
some of the stuff
allocated
that
almost all of it.
Some of the stuff we've given money for isn't under contract either yet. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's the
That's the
problem.
other thing.
Got
is
it.
that Everything's
That-
under agreement. But the requirement isn't under contract.
Right, that's what we wanted to do,
million.
just to be a little safer.
500,000.
The real requirement from Congress is that it needs to be allocated by the end of 2024, right?
Committed, yes.
Committed, okay. All right.
But we want to make sure the things that have committed are actually happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why if we commit all of this, let's say, by September, we want to be like actively communicating with everyone, October, November, just to make sure. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think a good default position is that, we find ourselves in December, then we start tacking off this capital plan. So that way, as Mr. Alonso said, that there's not $1 that still remains out there.
Exactly.
But I think it has to be, again, we want to be sure that it's under contract, not that we've allocated the money and then we have to go find somebody to do the project. That's what the 6 to 8 weeks is.
But that requirement is above and beyond the actual legal requirement. That's our
Yes.
own
Well,
requirement.
As we went with that just to be as safe as possible.
Yeah.
But we can get
Well, the
clarification.
town manager has said that to be really safe, that would be the safe,
I want to be very
so.
conservative and not take a chance.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Really
I do
risk
too.
averse when it comes to this.
All right, so do I have the green light to send an email out to start soliciting requests?
Through the town manager, yes.
Yeah, well, okay. I plan on working with her anyway.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Who is it
I
going?
know, that's the question. And I also don't really know how to bring this up in a public comment if we're going to talk about organizations that we're soliciting requests from. Can we just actually name people
think-
like that in a public meeting, or?
Previously, the town manager provided them to boards and committees, department heads,
Yes.
and then outside nonprofits in town as well.
Right. So do we want to have the same list as last time?
Do we have a list of all of the nonprofits in town? Did we go to all of them, or did we just go to select few?
No, I
we went
think
to
there
a
were
select
select
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I wanted to bring up, but I didn't really know how to do that in a public meeting.
Well, I think we bring it up to the people who we know of, and then, I mean, if anyone
Yeah.
watches our meetings and has other boards and
Well,
committees.
why are you reluctant? If we're going to reach out to them as a public entity and public email is public record, why can't you say it at a meeting? I don't understand the
Yeah,
game.
that's a good point. I guess, well, from my point of view, if I say, are there any nonprofits that, we're missing? I don't want people to just name them, like, let's solicit something from this nonprofit. Just seems a little strange but that might be me being overly cautious about
I
this.
mean, I don't know of many that we haven't already given money to. And
Yeah,
if they
I know.
exist, and I'd love to know I'd love to know, even in a public comment, who they are, because maybe I'm not aware of them.
Okay. All right, well, I can work with the town manager to get that email out.
Yeah. And
If I have-
the town clerk may have a list of nonprofits that are incorporated in town. Not they may know more than we do.
All right.
What I would ask, Mr. Chair, is that it's fine that we don't know them right now as we're speaking, but after the emails go out, I'd like a list of who we sent it to, so I'm aware
Oh, yeah, of
who we might
course.
hear back. Okay.
Yeah, you'll see all that.
And will there be like a request to get your request submitted by such and such a time? Or we're just going to leave it open-ended?
I did want to include some sort of deadline, so
Okay, so what would that
send
be?
it to us. Well, it's up for us to decide.
I think you and Heather could probably work that out. Do we need to figure that out?
I want to have submit by this deadline so we can review. I don't want this to just keep going on and kicking the can down the road and waiting. Well, we might get more requests. We should wait. We might get more. It's fish or cut bait time. I mean, we gotta
How about
start
August 31st?
examining requests and
That's what I
making
was thinking.
decisions.
Yeah, I was thinking the end of August.
August 31st.
That's what you said too? Yep,
Sounds great.
August 31st it is. Any additional discussion on ARPA?
Yeah, I would agree. I heard,
What'd you say?
I think that's too long.
Too long?
It's too long.
Yeah, because if you're talking about
I think end of
you're gonna
July
be-
is enough time.
You're not reviewing then until the beginning of September.
I think we should be reviewing in August.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just picking a date, July 31st.
So, I mean, we want to try, yeah.
If we get it out soon, depending on how soon you can get it out, that still gives them 3 weeks to get requests in, if we do the end of July.
Yeah, and we can start reviewing the first meeting in August.
I think we might be overthinking this a little too much.
Well, for nonprofits, because all we have to do for nonprofits, we can draw up the papers right away. I don't think we need terribly much lead time. Again, if August 31st is too much, then the middle of August, it doesn't matter. We don't need a whole lot of run-up time. It's not like we have to go into a construction contract like the other projects. So giving money to nonprofits is pretty easy.
But you're not talking about just nonprofits.
Right.
Yeah.
Talking about opening it up to all boards and committees and departments again.
I feel like.
But hold on a second,
Yeah.
hold on a second. What I heard was that we weren't following the spirit of the ARPA law, that's why we were going to nonprofits. If we're gonna go to other departments, well, we already have them. Like, we already have their lists from the non-funded capital
I'm just
plan.
repeating what I heard.
No,
the
I hear
board.
you, but I'm saying out loud to the rest of the board members, if that's the idea, then we don't have to go to other departments, because we already have them for the other departments.
I'm interested in the nonprofit space and the local businesses.
And I
That's my
think
main
3 weeks
concern.
should be enough time for them to get a request in. I mean, we spent all last summer reprioritizing, right? Remember?
And we
I
accept
don't
the
want,
request at the
I don't want
11th
that to
hour.
happen again.
Yeah, we're not going to spend that much time on the priority.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Heather, do you have a time frame that you think would be appropriate for?
I think you need to back into, just like anything else, if you're talking about, anything that's gonna require, you're gonna be meeting with all these, groups, and depending on how many, the review, your decision process, if it's gonna take, any contractual work or putting anything out to bid, you gotta build all of that into your timeline, so I think the end of July I think that's a good point.
Okay.
It's not that long, not that far away, but there's not a lot of time once you build into all those other.
Can we trust that between Heather and Caesar that they'll figure out an appropriate date that's not past August 31st and that they can just get this email out? That's my opinion. I can trust that.
All right.
I'm fine.
All right. Anything else we want to talk about for ARPA? All right, so up next is an amendment to the budget task force charge. So the only reason that we have to do this is because the school committee appointed an alternate representative in addition to their main representative. So we just need to change the language to a representative and/or an alternate representative. Right? Is there anything else I'm missing on that? That was the only reason why.
I can give some background. So Tony Scolambrini is the school committee representative, and he was concerned his work schedule is very unpredictable. And the school committee wanted to be sure to have a representative that would be available, so they voted for Laura Brzezowski to be the alternate.
So it's not in addition to, it's just.
No, for the,
Okay.
when Tony's tied up, can't make it.
Okay. I don't see the charge in our drive, so I'm just going to go find it.
It was in last meetings.
Yep. A different month, so I need a new folder.
Let me add it, because I actually was looking for it right before.
So under section 3, membership and meetings, under school committee, what do we want to say, one representative
Hang it.
Oh, it's a PDF.
and
I'm
alternate?
adding it
Oh,
right
okay.
now.
Yeah, just for school committee, wait, where is it? One representative and one alternate.
Well, do we want to just do it for all of the boards and just update the language to say one representative to one representative and alternate, if applicable?
It doesn't
Where
matter
is
to me.
this?
School committee
Go
was the only
to-
one who expressed wanting an alternate.
Where
but
it is?
doesn't matter.
June 18th,
June 18th.
and then,
About and/or alternate? That way, you know, the select board
That's
doesn't
fine.
need one.
right, yep. Makes sense.
Not and, or, because you do want a representative.
Correct.
Just or,
An
Right.
optional
Strictly
alternate.
speaking.
One
Optional-
representative and/or alternate.
Not
That's correct.
one representative or alternate?
No. Oh, yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, right.
An optional alternate?
Yeah, and
Optional.
optional.
And optional alternate.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
There you go, yes.
We'd get there
perfect.
eventually.
We figured it out.
It's
All right,
getting late.
is there a motion?
English.
Getting late, it's like 9 o'clock. What is this?
I'm old.
The
That's how I
geriatric
feel.
club, it's getting late.
Is there a motion?
Yes, I move that we modify the language of the budget task force charge, section 3 membership, to add an optional alternate for the school committee, finance committee, and select board.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. What's next? Interim town manager search. So I just added this as like a standing item on our agenda. The application deadline was yesterday, so we're not accepting applicants anymore. But for tonight, I really just wanted to give Heather the opportunity to talk to us about what she thinks. What qualities and skill sets are important in an interim town manager, and what she sees as the job of the interim town manager and what they'll be dealing with in the course of the next 3 to 6 months.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what I've seen in my experience with interims, you want someone who is well-versed in municipal functions. You want, ideally, someone who's been a town administrator, town manager. Most retired people, a lot of the times they come back as interims, so they can step in. There's not a lot of thought process going into the day-to-day operations because they know where to look for Mass General Law, they know who to contact. Even being a new community, they know how to figure things out easier. And someone that you just want to step in, as a temporary person to keep operations functioning, and still as a go-to, though, because there is going to be that void without having a town manager. So that would be my recommendation to the board.
Some people have expressed in the applications that they don't see it as a 40-hour-a-week interim. Okay, that
That says it all.
That's at the bottom of my pile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you comment on town administrator versus town manager?
That really just comes down to the form of government. So a town administrator role, the select board has more authority over day-to-day and reporting. So sometimes department heads actually report then to the board of selectmen or a select board versus a town manager.
So for an interim position, do you view them as equal, or you would?
Over someone who doesn't have that experience.
A town administrator,
I
town
think-
manager for interim?
I mean, I was a town administrator before I became the town manager
Yeah.
here. So it's just knowing or becoming more familiar with who your direct reports are. Here especially with all the charter, becoming very familiar with the charter up front and any special unique situations.
So what is our process? What's the next step?
So our next step is going to be to interview people we want to bring in for an interview, and then determine who we want to hire.
So there's
We have all
no-
the applicants.
Yeah, there's no HR call first. So
It's
private
up for
sector, we
us.
have like an HR call, and then hiring manager call, and then team interview. We screen the applications that have come in, decide who we want to bring in for an interview. I mean, the idea of interviewing someone in a public meeting is really bizarre to me, but whatever.
Welcome to municipal government.
I know.
And candidates hearing each, bizarre, but.
Yeah.
Everything you're used to in the private
It's-
sector, throw it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Heather, what do you think about doing, should we do like an initial screen before we get to that point? For the people that we decide to interview?
Initial
helpful?
screen meaning like
Like an initial HR screen before we invite them in?
I think that's essentially what the HR director did.
Right.
Was
Oh,
screen
I see.
the applicants for you into qualified and not qualified.
Oh, so she
Just
was
based on the
actually
submitted.
communicating with them?
Not communication.
Oh,
No, just screening their.
Screening their
CVs, right.
qualifications.
I see what you're saying. Okay, never mind.
But I think what we should do is, each of us should look at the ones that are there, because I don't know how many, I think there were 7 or something, at least
There's
of the
about-
ones that are qualified, some,
Yeah, something like that.
yeah, so we don't interview 7 people.
No,
Probably.
well, that's why I was gonna
Yeah,
ask the
so
town
we want
manager.
to say pretty soon who we think we should bring in, and then.
Yeah, that's a good segue, because I was gonna sort of get into that. I wanted to ask the town manager if you had any recommendations on the qualified candidates for people that we should bring in?
So I wasn't part of the process with, Julie did all accepting the applications, but I met with Caesar and Julie yesterday, and I know probably half the people that applied or know of them. There are some retired people in there that I would recommend the board interview, that were town managers or town administrators.
So as a next step to Selectman Imke's question, it sounds like we need to, by our next meeting, identify who we'd like to interview and maybe submit that over to you, Mr. Chair, and then you can screen through what our list is and then figure out kind of what the top, maybe we say 3 people are, and then advise us at our next meeting perhaps. That could be a good strategy.
How do we want to incorporate the town manager's feedback too? Because I think her experience is very relevant in this regard.
I think she should be one of the 5, 6.
Okay.
She's certainly able to submit, and there's no open meeting law from the town manager. She can give us her opinion on all of them if she
Sure.
wants.
Okay.
So
And
how many
provide
are we each
recommendations.
recommending?
I think we should just rank them.
Rank
It's
them
easy.
Rank them?
Just-
Rank them?
yeah.
Okay.
And-
Yeah, that'll work.
And we do that privately, or we do that?
Yeah, and then
Probably
send
then
them
send it
to
to me ahead
Caesar
of-
alone.
Yeah.
Are we ranking just qualified or? are we looking at any of the other ones? Because I know there's
Whatever.
three
Anyone you want.
folders.
Anybody you want,
Anybody
out of
we
all.
want.
All right, so we ran into ranking issues before, so how many people are we going to rank? I think we need to
Everybody-
stick with the limit.
Everybody
All
that's
of
in
the
there.
qualified candidates.
Well, at least the
I
qualified
can tell you, I
candidates.
have my four. I have four that I could,
At least the qualified candidates that are in the qualified. The people
Yes.
who have met the qualifications but are not qualified, which is pile 2, I guess that's up to you, and
I wasn't gonna, based on, I looked through them, I don't think anyone there, I don't think I would interview, because there's people like from out of other state who would have to like
Yeah.
relocate here, like, I don't think it makes any sense to consider
Right.
them. And also, it's really important for them to have experience with Massachusetts laws,
Yeah.
I
so,
couldn't agree more.
yeah, okay.
I
so,
would say 5 is
I
a good
can
number.
rank- I can
because
rank
by the time
4.
you get.
Because realistically,
that
We don't want to
process,
interview
someone
more
might
than
back out.
4.
yeah.
3
I
would
can
be
cut
better,
it to
but
3.
4 would be the most.
Yeah, but ranking wise, I'm of the opinion that we should put a limit on how many we should rank. I think it should be 5 in between the qualified and unqualified, and that way, because we run into issues if one person rates 12 people and
Yeah.
then someone else rates
So if we
3.
all rank 5 and then we pick the top 4?
Yeah, the top 3
Yeah.
or 4.
Top 3?
Yes. All right, that works for me. All right, so we can do that and just submit it to me ahead of our next meeting, so we can actually have something to talk about then.
We need a deadline, because you need time to review and rank, so we need a deadline. I would suggest that
Can
we
you
get
do
a deadline.
Can you do it by this weekend?
Yeah.
End of the weekend?
Yep.
It's not gonna take me that long, it's only 5 people
No, the
for each.
Well, when they don't
navigating
come
to
in on
the
time.
folder is the
Yeah.
hard
It's
part.
challenging.
That's awful, that
Okay.
shared folder
That-
is awful. I
it's-
wish there was a Google Drive.
Yeah,
So,
I have to keep refreshing it, it's,
hold on, one other thing that I want to bring up that I forgot to bring up during ARPA, because that conversation went in a different direction than I thought it would. Did the town manager screening committee discuss using a consultant to help us with the search?
We touched on the topic on our first meeting. We did not determine whether we thought it was a good use of funds, because in the past, it has not been.
Oh, all right.
But it has not been finally decided. It was, we'll know, we're meeting tomorrow night. So
All
it'll be
right.
challenging seeing the tent, the tent Zoom that we were subject to tonight. So it'll be interesting to see how that meeting goes, but I think it'll be discussed.
What did you say? The what?
Tent.
The tent
Tent.
Zoom.
Oh,
Town moderator.
Oh, I thought you said tent, so.
tell them to look for
Is it a
Dunkin'
tent or
Donuts or
yeah.
something.
All right. Cool. So we'll follow up on that after that.
Yep.
All right. That's the only thing I had. Is there anything else we need to talk about tonight for this?
And the other thing, we do have to talk about, and we'll have to know, not only for the interim, but for the screening committee's gonna want to know salary range.
Oh, yes.
So interim, we're gonna have to know how much we're paying. And presumably that's a little easier, because, again, we know what the town manager's current salary is, so that would be a ceiling, I would say. But for the new town manager that we're screening for, we need to know what the range needs to be.
Okay.
That's one thing that our HR call does is the expected, they qualify the candidate on the expected salary range. And if they're way out of our range, then
Yeah, but we have to
No
have
percent.
our range first before we have to determine what our range is. Yeah.
Specifically for the permanent
Right.
Yes.
position for the
Right.
that one,
advertisement.
but
All right. Anything else? Moving on to current business. Vote on opting in Kroger opioid settlement. We're not doing that today, right?
Actually, I can answer that question.
Oh.
That Select Board Member Emke raised, that Massachusetts is not listed on that. So I forwarded the board the correspondence with the attorney that handles the opioid litigation. My question regarding whether there was no negative financial impact, no, there was no negative financial impact. He answered that, and I also then asked Selectman Emke's question, that Massachusetts is not listed on that, and you are correct, sorry, thanks. That's what I got back. After
Obviously-
all this push that we had to get this done.
So obviously, attention to detail in law school
Yes.
wasn't a big forte of this
No.
personal attorney, okay.
All right.
that was a
So
tease.
Yeah.
It's
You
like,
you can opt in for money? No.
Yeah.
that was
yeah,
like-
but we.
This was unique to all the other settlements with other entities.
Yeah.
We were automatically part of the litigation unless you actually, you know,
Opted out.
opted out. This was opt-in.
Need a star market one.
All right, so moving on to minutes, we do have minutes from June 18th. Have we reviewed them?
Yes.
Any
Yeah.
questions?
I have one correction. The second of the approval of the October 17th, 2023 minutes that was done at that meeting. It has me as seconding, but I actually was one who abstained. Selectman Jeffries
Okay.
seconded those minutes.
Okay.
So I wanted to review that again because I thought there was a few things that I had seconded that she has, I believe Selectman Emke seconding, but I don't know, I didn't have enough time to go through it or rewatch the meeting.
Yeah, and I just know that one because I missed that October meeting, so I didn't
And now I can.
Right.
on the approval.
Anything else? Do we want to hold off on voting on this then, until those updates are made, or?
If there's more updates that we don't know about, then we can't vote.
Maybe we can wait till next week. I can look back through it again.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay. Warrants. Before we do that, I'm going to pass this down. I didn't pass it down earlier. This is just the license for Pal's Lounge. So we have a payroll warrant in the amount of $26,511.44. And then there's, oh, thank you. I missed that one.
It all goes to.
And then there's, I believe, 2 accounts payable here, right?
Yep, I'm just putting
Okay.
the top one.
These go together.
One in the amount of $12,000 exactly.
Wow. Chances of that.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was gonna pass the
And the other in the amount of $99,936.97. And that's it, right?
Accounts payable.
Yes, that's all.
And these ones are both accounts payable?
Yeah.
Yeah. Action items, are there any action items?
I did want to make sure that everybody received the email I received. Sorry, I just saw an ambulance go by. From the citizen who objected to the pride flag. I get
Yes,
that,
I
I get
saw
that
it.
every year. So just so you know.
Thank you for
Every year
sending
that
it to
we've
us.
approved it. Every year that we've approved it.
There was nothing in here to sign, right?
Any action items?
Just on top.
I had just one. I went to the gas station down the hill from Walmart, and I think it's the Mike's Mobile or something like that. And I was handed a plastic bag. So I had ordered, I think I got a bag of chips or something like that, and they put it in a plastic bag. And I didn't say anything to them. I didn't have a moment in the store to remind them that in Lunenburg it has to be paper bags, because I certainly didn't vote for that at town meeting. But I just wanted to make the town manager aware so that she can make the building, I think, commissioner aware of that.
No, actually, I looked because Annie notified me that day, and I am the town manager is the enforcement.
You're the enforcing agent?
So you're going to go enforce it?
We already sent a letter that day.
Okay.
I did tell you? I did send you an email?
You spoke with Annie.
Okay.
And Annie spoke with me.
Got it.
So add that to the list of attributes that the next person needs.
Any other action items? All right, committee reports.
I just have why, is that in the bylaw that we wrote that the town manager?
There's a
is the-
citizens petition bylaw, if
Oh,
you remember.
yeah.
And
so you're the enforcer? Okay.
Committee reports?
Town manager screening committee meets tomorrow, as does the capital planning committee. Right after.
Fun.
Oh, yeah.
The finance committee, appointing committee needs to meet to correct terms. Are you still the person, or is it?
I
is it you?
think I'm on it now, yes.
Okay.
This year.
Right? There are a couple terms that they have to meet to correct?
I did a review of the finance committee and sent that to the finance committee before I went on vacation. And they discussed it, I think, their last meeting.
Okay.
Well, did we check the minutes of the Finance Committee Appointment Committee? Because maybe we don't have to meet. If we have appointed them and they're just wrongly, clerically, changed, if we voted them right, then we don't have to meet at all.
No, I think the minutes reflected a wrong term at one point.
Okay, well, I wasn't on them, so I can't speak. Okay. Well,
Just bringing it up.
Yeah, I think the moderator runs those meetings.
Yep,
so he-
that's the town moderator, is the chair of that meeting.
Oh, I see, okay. I'll bring it up with him then.
When he gets back.
Yeah.
I don't want to have too many Zoom meetings with him. That would be painful.
Yeah, it's not urgent anyway, so,
Right.
whatever. But I just wanted to bring that up.
And the Finance Committee meets on Thursday, by the way.
Cool.
Yeah, and right before the Finance Committee, the Budget Task Force is kicking off
Exciting.
5:30.
A lot of old-time double headers this week.
Yeah.
Very
Poor
nice.
Evan, yeah.
Poor
I'm going
Evan.
to bring him a sandwich for dinner, I think.
Any other committee reports? I don't have any either tonight. All right, upcoming meetings, next Tuesday, July 16th, and the following Tuesday after that.
I will not be here on the 23rd.
Okay.
I will be on vacation.
Will not be here the 23rd.
The 23rd as well? All right, so it's on the three of us to maintain our quorum on that day then.
My last meeting,
It is, yeah.
Is it your last meeting?
23rd is.
23rd. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
I thought you were here till the 4th or something.
Right, but there's
Sunday,
no
though.
meeting in the
Yeah,
last.
there's no,
No
Oh.
meeting the last week of July.
Oh, well.
So should we just go ahead and try to meet?
no.
I'm just messing with you, Heather.
Well, if there is no meeting, I mean, again, maybe.
Should we move the
maybe we should just
23rd to
move
the
meeting
30th?
The 23rd to the 30th.
I won't be here the week after that.
And neither am I.
Yeah,
All right, well.
that's all right, well,
So hiring an interim is going to be fun then.
yeah, I know. And I'll put it out there, I'm not going to be here the first week of August. But other than that, I don't have any other planned absences. All right. Public comments, are there any public comments from the town manager?
No, thank you.
Any public comments from the public? Mr. Passios?
He's bringing.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. Couldn't stay all night without making a comment at the end of the meeting. First one is a request to your member who is presently chair of the Capital Planning Committee. May not be after, I see you're reorganizing tomorrow night, so you may not be. In any case, I would request that you either revise your agenda for tomorrow night or bring it up under unanticipated subject, but it's anticipated just because I'm bringing it up, and that is that the Capital Planning Committee discuss what they would put forward as projects that could be funded by ARPA, so that we don't have to wait till whenever your next meeting is to get that to this board. I feel that's very important. That's why I brought it up a month ago. I think those small infrastructure projects need to get done to help move us forward in a direction that's going to save our buildings and some of the other infrastructure problems that we have. And it doesn't need to use all of the money that's left, but at least half of it. So that's just a request. My second issue, and this is as a taxpayer, I am really perplexed as to why we're spending money on correcting a problem that was created by our contractor, i.e. Munis. Why are we using our IT contractor, who already has enough issues to deal with within our town operations, and expecting them to be the boots on the ground for Munis? I don't see that as a proper way to deal with this. You guys were real hard on them there a few weeks ago that, Munis needs to have boots on the ground and they need to fix this thing. It's their problem. Well, why all of a sudden are we paying for their problem and using our contracted staff to fix their problem? So those are my comments. If I have it wrong, let me know. but that's what I heard tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Passios. Is there anyone on Zoom?
If I may, the answer to your question, Mr. Passios, is lack of leverage. While in principle, it would be they would be ethically responsible, we still have a town to run and bills to pay, and there's no way they're going to provide us with those things. And we could fight them in court, and it would cost us more than getting a consultant. That would be the answer.
Do you see us being reimbursed down the road somewhere?
Repeat the question for the public.
So Mr. Passios asked if I foresaw, or anybody foresaw us being reimbursed. You know, we're working with them to see what we can do on the support contract this year, but in direct answer to your question, no. As one member, I don't foresee that.
Thank you.
All right. Any public comments from the board?
Yes, and this maybe is not so much a public comment as much as it's going back to action items. So we just heard from two members that they're not going to be here on July the 23rd, and that's going to pose a problem for us if we don't figure out a better way, schedule-wise, to be able to interview with appointees identified on the 16th. So I guess I'm just encouraging our members who are going to not be here on the 23rd, if we can get clarity, if you guys are, let me rephrase this. I would encourage the chair over the next coming days to work with the two members that will not be here on the 23rd to figure out a schedule so that way the board can meet and interview and potentially hire an interim in much sooner time frame. I think given that our next meeting is on the 16th and that, you know, we're going to take 6 days to rank people, I think we may want to consider shortening that timeline, and we may want to consider throwing in another meeting next week of just interviews, so that way we can try to hire someone sooner than later and hope that we can have a little bit of overlap with the town manager, that if someone's in an existing job and they got to give 2 weeks notice, they need to be hired pretty immediately.
Okay. Yep.
So I just encourage that we don't let that fall. And then also, I think that Mr. Alonso, as our most senior member of the board, I think his attendance at these interviews is mission critical, in my opinion.
So I'm totally open to meetings. I'm physically away that week of the 21st, so to the 28th, but meeting before then, an extra meeting, I'm fine with. I don't have anything urgent planned in any of those, as long as it's an evening meeting, yep.
What about you, Selectman Emke?
I can meet next week. I mean, I actually came prepared tonight to give my ranking, so.
Oh, all right, cool.
Well,
good to know you have that ready, so.
Because I want to get it moving, because I'm not the most patient person.
And I just run that if we wait till the 16th to go over our priorities and then contact people on the 17th, I think the opportunity for us to have an interview next week goes down.
Right.
So I would just encourage that we might want to think about expediting that timeline a little bit, and that there may be some outreach between you and the rest of the board about scheduling.
Yep, I'll do that.
Can you just decide tonight and say, can everyone have it by tomorrow?
Can everyone have it by tomorrow?
I can have it by tomorrow.
All right,
I
sounds
don't know
good.
if I'll try to have it by tomorrow. I mean, again, you know, it's 9:30, I haven't even downloaded them, and I have 2 meetings tomorrow night as well, so I will do my best. I can get it to you by Thursday morning at the latest. Okay.
That's fine. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. It is 9:33 PM. Thank you to everyone at home for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you all next week.